Chapter 2981. The Power to Control the Realm. What a joke. The Guangshuan Heavenly Prince's strength was obvious to all. The magnates were either afraid of him, or were defeated by him. Lin Ling trying to show off at this time. Wasn't he courting death? If Prince Guangshuan turned his attention to the imperial court, the imperial court would be in trouble unless the Azure Emperor came. But even if the Azure Emperor came, would he care about the imperial court? That was impossible. Master, what are you doing? The third princess was about to cry. Even the Empress Dowager didn't dare to offend Prince Guangshuan, so she was naturally afraid. Since he's already invited me, how can I not go? Lin Ling smiled faintly. Under countless fearful gazes, he walked out step by step. Master, he's calling Senior Lin, not you. The third princess almost rushed out to drag Lin Ling back. In her opinion, someone who could be valued by Prince Guangshuan must be a hidden deity expert in the Azure State. He should be a white-haired old man. Obviously, this had nothing to do with Lin Ling. Lin Ling was one of the 9 heavens of the Azure State. He was a genius, but he wasn't at the level of a senior. Senior Lin? He thinks he's Senior Lin? The minister of the left, and the others were also shocked. However, the cultivators of the Azure State cheered. Although they didn't believe that Lin Ling was Senior Lin, at least Lin Ling dared to fight for the Azure State. At this moment, Prince Guangshuan frowned and looked at Lin Ling. He was very surprised. He said faintly, "I'm looking for Senior Lin, not a useless person like you. Kid, I'll spare your life since you're young. Get lost." Obviously, Prince Guangshuan wasn't interested in a junior at the 3rd level of the martial immortal realm. "I don't know who Senior Lin is, but if you're here for your brother, Prince Guangtai, then it should be me." Lin Ling's face was calm. He didn't have any fear when facing an expert like Heavenly Prince Guangshuan. "If I remember correctly, your younger brother fought with others for the Dragon's Soul in the Crimson Province. In the end, the Dragon's Soul was taken away by the experts of the Divine Temple. He was not a patient person, so he took a fancy to the treasures I had. However, he was humiliated by another expert in the end. At that time, he was so angry that he was speechless. He once said that he would visit you again in the future for today's humiliation. Sigh. People who practice martial arts are too impatient. They can't achieve anything great," Lin Ling said to himself. His words made people's eyes flicker, because they didn't know what Lin Ling was talking about. On the contrary, they thought that Lin Ling was a lunatic. The third princess almost shouted that Prince Guangxian recognized the wrong person. "You are the Senior Lin who humiliated my little brother." But at this moment, Guangshuan Heavenly Prince exclaimed, because he was the only one who knew the whole process. Since Lin Ling could say it, it meant that Lin Ling was Lin Ling. As soon as the words fell, Qing Province exploded, because Guangshuan Heavenly Prince admitted it himself. And when did Lin Ling become Senior Lin? When did he go to the Crimson Province and humiliate one of the 3 emperors of the Crimson Province, causing the latter to die with grievances? All of this struck everyone's hearts like a thunderclap. "It's you, it's you, it's you!" Guangshuan Heavenly Prince's face was extremely cold, and his voice was louder than the previous one. He didn't expect the person who humiliated his third brother to be so young and weak. "Your little brother must have obtained a lot of treasures. His cultivation is not bad, but his foundation is not very solid. He's not strong, but he's showing off everywhere. No wonder he was killed by the Saint of the 9 Province." However, Lin Ling spoke again. His words undoubtedly made Guangshuan Heavenly Prince even more furious. Everyone smiled bitterly, especially the people of the imperial court. They looked at each other speechless. One had to know that although Lin Ling was very powerful, he still couldn't win against the leader of the magnates. Previously, when he fought against the 2 heavenly princes, that should be Lin Ling's limit. He wasn't a match for Guangshuan Heavenly Prince at all. In fact, the 99th prince and the others also thought so. There was only one possibility, and that was that Lin Ling had increased his strength again in this short period of time. Of course, this possibility was also impossible. "The last knot in my third brother's heart will be resolved today. I will use your head as a sacrifice to my third brother. Go to hell." Guangshuan Heavenly Prince shouted coldly. With a wave of his right hand, a dazzling ray of light shot out. It was sparkling and resplendent, but it seemed to be able to cut through 10,000 worlds. And this was just an ordinary attack. But it wasn't something that Lin Ling could block. The gazes of everyone present turned solemn, especially Sakura and the other 9 great heavens. They were even shouting. In their opinion, Lin Ling might only be able to fight to a draw against Guangshuan Heavenly Prince's disciple, Lin Wu, let alone Guangshuan Heavenly Prince who was at the master level. Grandma Wendao, please help. The third princess looked at the sky and kept shouting in her heart. Now, she could only ask Grandma Wendao for help. Flaming coffin. However, at this moment, a cold voice suddenly sounded. Huge flaming coffins fell from the sky, one after another endlessly. Rumble. A deafening sound was heard. Under countless gazes, the flaming coffins fell layer by layer and broke the dazzling line of fire. How is this possible? Guangshuan Heavenly Prince's expression changed slightly. His previous attack was a casual one. However, he was a 9th stage martial immortal expert. Even a casual attack was not something that a 3rd stage martial immortal expert could block. You've already called me Senior Lin. Don't you plan to use your true strength? At this moment, Lin Ling said indifferently with his hands behind his back. He was also very curious about Guangshuan Heavenly Prince's strength. However, his opponent underestimated him too much, which made him unable to arouse any interest. As you wish, Guangshuan Heavenly Prince said coldly. Behind him, countless lines of fire appeared and intersected with each other. The aura of the desolate body erupted. I have the desolate body too. At the same time, Lin Ling also activated the talent of the world-devouring beast. It was as if he had the strength to pull up mountains and rivers. Your talent is not bad. Guangshuan Heavenly Prince's eyes flashed. He did not expect Lin Ling, a junior, to also have the desolate body. However, he sneered and raised his right hand high above his head. He combined his talent and the power of the universe to form a powerful rank power. So strong. The power of the gods. This is the power to change the world. Seeing the intersecting lines of fire in the sky, the left minister and the others exclaimed. The level of the desolate body and the power of the rank were terrifying. The difference between them and Guangshuan Heavenly Prince was that they did not have the desolate body. That arrogant junior is going to die today. Guangshuan Heavenly Prince is obviously serious. The Prime Minister and the 99th Prince sneered and gloated. Worlds come, 100 worlds for my use. Yes. At this moment, the voice of the gods sounded again. The wind and clouds rolled in the sky. In the void of the universe, 100 worlds were moved and smashed towards Lin Ling like meteorites. Chapter 2982. You must be a descendant of a sage. Dragon bones. However, under countless gazes, Lin Ling raised his head to the sky. The dragon god's aura was roaring. It made the realm-swallowing beast even bigger. Boom. Boom. One realm after another smashed down, but they were all blocked by Lin Ling. What was even more frightening was that Lin Ling's feet remained unscathed despite the 100 worlds crashing down. This meant that he had relied on his own strength to block the 100 worlds crashing down. He had not borrowed the power of Qing province at all. This guy! Everyone screamed in horror. I want to see how many realms you can block. Come 500 realms for me to use. Heavenly Prince Guangshuan frowned. He did not believe that a guy at the 3rd level of the martial immortal realm could be so powerful. At the same time, he waved his left hand. His talent and power were extremely powerful. Through the line of fire, he was able to bind the boundaries of the myriad worlds. Through the chaos of the universe, he once again smashed down on Green Province. Such an expert could really be called a god. Likely, very few martial immortals would be able to block such a frightening attack. Only half-saints would be able to do so. You'd better move out of the 1,000 worlds. However, Lin Ling held the interface above his head and said faintly. His corporeal body had been tempered by the great ocean heart flower, the essence of the world mountain, and the dragon bones. He had long reached the power of 120 worlds. Lin Ling couldn't be bothered to say anything if a mere 100 realms wanted to suppress him. Rumble. 500 worlds crashed down, but Lin Ling remained unscathed. At this moment, the fusion of his 3 dantians and his god-fiend body made him as steady as a mountain. What? This time, Guangshuan Heavenly Prince's eyes narrowed. What kind of freak was this? Then he saw Lin Ling gently sigh, which made him furious. Lin Ling's sigh seemed to be regretting that he didn't listen to his advice, and insisted on losing face. Thousand Realms Whirling. Heavenly Prince Guangxian was clearly serious. When the Thousand Realms Whirling appeared, the sky became even scarier. Countless worlds floated in the sky, and one could even see the blank faces of the innocent people in the worlds. This also meant that the lives of countless living beings here were under the control of Heavenly Prince Guangshuan. This was the might of the 9 prefectures experts. To the myriad worlds they were like gods. The Thousand Realms whirlpool began to fall like a violent storm, causing the entire Qing province to turn pitch black. Every cultivator sucked in a breath of cold air. This time could Lin Ling block it? The 99 princes, and the others all had serious expressions. If Lin Ling could still withstand it, then Lin Ling was already the leader of the giants. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. Because if Lin Ling was really so strong, he wouldn't have had to struggle when fighting Xiong, Hu in Heavenly Court. Dragon God. As the Thousand Realms whirlpool fell, Lin Ling's expression turned solemn. He dared not fear Heavenly Prince Guangxian, because he wanted to see how powerful the Dragon God Essence Pill was. The roar of a dragon could be heard. Within Lin Ling's body, the Dragon God rushed out and roared. All the dragons in Qing province trembled and flew out from every corner. They hovered in the sky and looked at the illusory Dragon God. Even the dragon ancestor knelt down at this moment. The Dragon God hovered around Lin Ling, making Lin Ling look like a dragon. Desolate body, another desolate body. Heavenly Prince Guangxian was stunned. Dragon. Moreover, it was not an ordinary dragon. All realms return. At this moment, Lin Ling roared and merged with his 4th Dantian. His boundary essence had reached the 10th level of the martial immortal realm. It surged and shook Qing province. He raised his hands, and a rumbling sound was heard. The 1,000 Dao realms were all blasted away, and returned to the myriad worlds. Everything returned to normal. So powerful. Is this still the 3rd level of the martial immortal realm? And the boundary essence that Lin Ling erupted with directly frightened Heavenly Prince Guangshuan. Senior Lin. This is the real Senior Lin. Time and Space Divine Steel. After pushing out the 1,000 Realms whirlpool, Lin Ling immediately shouted. This time, a huge black shadow appeared in the sky. Then it pressed down like the investiture of the gods. The surging wind made Heavenly Prince Guangxian's expression change greatly. This seems to be another desolate body. I can't fight. This kid is too mysterious. He must be the descendant of a god. No wonder he dared to humiliate third brother. I'm afraid the person who killed third brother is his master. Heavenly Prince Guangxian thought quickly. Then, he turned into a streak of fire, and fled into the distance. Lin Ling's mysteriousness made him very afraid. He was not a 3rd level of the martial immortal realm at all. He must be hiding something. In the end, the space-time divine steel did not suppress Heavenly Prince Guangxian. However, Heavenly Prince Guangxian's escape stunned all the cultivators in Qing province. Previously, Heavenly Prince Guangxian had used the 1,000 Realms whirlpool to suppress Lin Ling. However, when it was Lin Ling's turn to attack, Heavenly Prince Guangxian did not dare to take his attack and directly fled. This change was beyond imagination. At this moment, Heavenly Prince Guangxian had fled far away. He looked back and saw the huge black ancient steel falling to the ground. His expression became more serious. Fortunately, he managed to escape. However, at this moment, Lin Ling's hand was already touching the sword behind him. The energy in his body was continuously being absorbed. After the birth of the 4th Dantian, he wanted to see how powerful the sword would be after absorbing all his essence, energy, and spirit. So powerful, Lin Ling was shocked even before the sword was drawn. He felt that the sword in his hand was heavier than the 1,000 Realms whirlpool. There was a mysterious power erupting. Sword, come out! He could not hold back anymore. He had to draw his sword. The moment the sword flashed, the headless old man mysteriously appeared. He floated in the sky with his long hair fluttering in the wind. He looked like a lonely person seeking defeat. A desolate aura suppressed the Azure province. At this moment, The swords of all the sword cultivators in the Azure province were broken. In the 10,000 worlds, the swords of all the sword cultivators near the Azure province were broken. Clang! A crisp sound was heard almost at the same time. Before the sound had died down, a sword came from the west. Stunning and dazzling. In the distant sky, a stream of blood bloomed like a flower as if it was cut by something. Then, a figure stopped running and stood in the sky in a daze. He was Guangshuan, son of heaven. A sword was slashing toward him. When he reacted, he knew it was too late. That sword contained a power that even he couldn't see through. There was realm essence, physical strength, and even soul force. These three types of power that shouldn't have fused together actually fused together into a single sword, forming a power that only a god could possess. Senior Lin, what sword is that? He stared at the palace in the distance, and then at the blue-robed young man. Senior Lin. This time, he finally admitted that the other party was his senior. I don't know either. In the palace, Lin Ling shook his head. He was telling the truth. He really did not know the origin of the scabbard. You have too many secrets. You must be a descendant of a saint. Heavenly Prince Guangshuan spat out these words with great difficulty as his body fell from the sky. He seemed to be completely fine, but in reality, his soul, dantian, and body had all been severed. Chapter 2983. Light up Qingzhou. Silence. A deathly silence. Qingzhou was incomparably silent. Lin Ling had killed Guangshuan, son of heaven. He was an opponent that even the prime minister and the 99 crown princes could not defeat. This meant that Lin Ling was stronger than the leaders of the major powers. Plop. The prime minister and the left prime minister fell from their seats. Their faces were trembling. They even slapped themselves hard, afraid that they were dreaming. Lin Ling had barely defeated 2 heaven's gifts not long ago. However, Lin Ling had defeated Guangshuan, son of heaven, in such a short time. Could it be that this guy had been hiding his strength all this time? Senior Lin, master, it's really Senior Lin. The third princess's heart was also in a state of shock. His Excellency Lin Ling was indeed extraordinary. What about you guys? Do you still want to fight? At this moment, Lin Ling's long robe was fluttering like the clouds in the sky. It was difficult to see through him. He looked at the experts of Crimson State and said indifferently, Senior Lin, please spare our lives. Those people all knelt down. In their hearts, Lin Ling was the mysterious Senior Lin. He was the descendant of a sage, and was not someone they could provoke. If they knew that Lin Ling might not even be able to defeat Lin Wu not long ago, what would they think now? Senior Lin, from now on, you are the leader of Qingzhou. Lin Wu kowtowed and said. He did not know Lin Ling's identity, and thought that Lin Ling had always been the strongest ancient martial artist in Qingzhou. He even thought that although Lin Ling looked young, he was actually a god ancient martial artist from the ancient times. He was even qualified to be his grandfather's grandfather. Now he knew that Lin Ling was in Qingzhou. Unless the Scarlet Emperor came, Qingzhou would not dare to cross the line. You guys can go now. Lin Ling said indifferently. Thank you, Senior, thank you. Lin Wu and the others quickly bowed and fled into the distance. As for the Qingzhou martial artists, they were all shocked. From now on you are the leader of Qingzhou? This sentence shocked them. Roars could be heard one after another. The 3 great academies of Qingzhou, the various cities, the 6 armies and other ancient factions were all excited. In Qingzhou, Lin Ling reigned supreme. They were convinced. Inside the palace, the magnates were all silent, but they all looked dispirited. Today, the imperial court's reputation had greatly increased. As long as Lin Ling was here, the people of Qingzhou would definitely think that the third princess had the highest chance of becoming the Azure Emperor. Lin Ling, you killed Heavenly Prince Guangshuan. After a moment of silence, the Empress Dowager suddenly spoke. Lin Ling glanced at her with murderous intent in his eyes, but he also knew that he could only fight to a draw with the Empress Dowager. Moreover, he was not in his best condition after using his strongest attack, so it was not suitable for him to fight again. Shaking his head, Lin Ling ignored the Empress Dowager and walked back. Lin Ling, the Empress Dowager is asking you a question. A palace maid frowned and said. Lin Ling was too arrogant. He had humiliated and ignored the Empress Dowager time and time again. What dignity did the Empress Dowager have left? At this moment, the people around were all silent. They did not dare to help the Empress Dowager, because they were very afraid of Lin Ling. As for the Qingzhou martial artists, they were also silent, but their hearts were on Lin Ling's side. I dare to kill those you don't dare to. Finally, Lin Ling stopped in his tracks. He glanced at the Empress Dowager and said, "Lin Ling." After these words were spoken, Qing province finally erupted into cheers that soared into the sky. I dare to kill those you don't dare to. How domineering this sentence was. When the Crimson Prefecture experts arrived, the Empress Dowager could only smile. When Heavenly Prince Guangshuan humiliated the Qingzhou martial artists, the Empress Dowager could only remain silent. However, Lin Ling had come out. He dared to. Lin Ling. Yes. Even the other martial artists in the palace shouted out Lin Ling's name. Although they were enemies, they did not have the Heavenly Prince's order, and could not become Emperor Qing. Therefore, they were united against external enemies. And Lin Ling was the first to stand out. The cheers that soared into the sky were like a war song that danced in the air in Qingzhou, like the boiling of war drums. The Empress Dowager's face was incomparably ugly, and her body was constantly trembling. Now, she wanted to kill Lin Ling, but she was afraid that it would be difficult to do so. The Heavenly Fruit Conference is over. Yes. She coldly snorted and strode away. The Heavenly Fruit Conference is over. Yes. After Lin Ling returned to his seat, he smiled faintly. This time, after defeating Heavenly Prince Guangshuan, he was more familiar with his strength. Master, you are so powerful. You promised to guide me in my cultivation. Yes. The third princess looked at Lin Ling excitedly. Now, she had 200% confidence in Lin Ling. The path of martial arts was vast and complicated. Any martial arts could reach the peak. However, if there was a powerful master to guide you, you would undoubtedly be able to avoid detours and stimulate all your potential. And Lin Ling was undoubtedly that powerful master. Because, how could an ordinary martial artist defeat a martial immortal at the third level of the martial immortal realm? Your Excellency Lin Ling, please guide the third princess. Yes. The old woman beside the third princess also saluted Lin Ling. In the past, she felt that Lin Ling was too young, so she did not believe in Lin Ling. But now what else could she not believe? Lin Ling's martial arts was different from ordinary people, but his power was obvious to all. Okay, I will guide you before I leave Qingzhou. Yes. Lin Ling took a sip of wine and smiled faintly. Master, you are leaving? Yes. Hearing that, the third princess's expression changed. Lin Ling nodded and looked into the distance. Yes, it's time to go. Qingzhou can't keep me here, and I have my own mission. Hearing that, the third princess's expression dimmed. Although she already knew that Lin Ling would leave, she was still reluctant at this moment. Sakura and the others had already guessed it, because in the Eight Gods' heavenly palace, Lin Ling had once said that he was not interested in the position of the Azure Emperor. At that time, they knew that the small temple in Qingzhou could not keep Lin Ling. Let's go back first. Let's go. Lin Ling glanced at the palace and found that everyone had left. Then he smiled and said, the people of the imperial court all left with Lin Ling. The whole process was joyous. They also knew that after this, the third princess had the highest chance of becoming the Azure Emperor, because the other magnates could not stop Lin Ling. Moreover, there was a mastermind behind the imperial court, and it was Grandma Wendao. She was the leader of the two magnates, and the position of the emperor was within reach. As for the other three magnates, they were both shocked and afraid. They were shocked by Lin Ling's speed of growth, and afraid that Lin Ling would seek revenge later. Especially the imperial court and the left minister's residence. They had obviously lost the chance to compete for the position of the emperor. On the other hand, the army of Blue Flame still had a chance. I must report this to the Azure Emperor. The Prime Minister looked at the rolling clouds in the sky and mumbled to himself. After saying that, he laughed bitterly. In the past, he had mentioned Lin Ling to the Azure Emperor, but the Azure Emperor had replied that this man was extraordinary. However, the Prime Minister's reply was that this was all. Chapter 2984. The Azure Emperor had arrived. Under the dazzling light, the third princess had obtained absolute protection and safely walked towards the emperor horoscope. Qing province had clearly been changed by Lin Ling. At this moment, Lin Ling had followed the third princess to where the imperial court was and began to guide the third princess in her cultivation. The third princess had also given all the treasures of the imperial court to Lin Ling. Unfortunately, Lin Ling had rejected them with a smile. It was not that he did not want them, but that the treasures were not enough for his 4 dantians to cultivate. The more dantians he had, the stronger he could fight against those of a higher level. However, the cultivation resources he needed were also more. At the same time, Lin Ling had also brought Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others over. In the imperial court, Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others were clearly safer. Of course, Lin Ling had also forged a barrier jade token that could allow Ancestor Extreme Flame and the others to reach the Flame World fragment. He had also warned them not to tell anyone about this token. If anything happened, they were to leave through the barrier immediately. Qing province gradually quieted down. Autumn and winter had passed and spring had arrived. Flowers bloomed. On the ancient mountain peak, Lin Ling and Indra were talking. However, not long after, Lin Ling suddenly stopped talking and looked deeply at the sky. Under the clear sky, Lin Ling's soul power felt something wrong. You have actually come. Why don't you come out to meet people? After thinking for a moment, Lin Ling slowly spoke. His words surprised Indra and the others because they had not sensed anyone in the sky. However, in the next moment, a calm and low voice suddenly sounded. You are Lin Ling. You are indeed powerful. Yes. In the sky, a middle-aged man wearing an azure dragon robe walked down with a smile. What was surprising was that this person's strength looked extremely ordinary. If he had not walked down from the sky, people would have thought he was a mortal. Who are you? Yes. Indra and Ming Lu both frowned. However, the third princess' expression changed drastically. Before she could speak, Lin Ling had already spoken. He is the former Azure Emperor. Yes. As soon as these words fell, Sakura and the others were greatly shocked. Azure Emperor? The former God Emperor of Qing Province? Below the ancient mountain, the expressions of the imperial dynasty's people changed. They were planning to charge up the mountain. Don't come up. However, Lin Ling stopped them. He smiled faintly and said, Prepare some good tea for the former Qing Emperor. Yes, Your Excellency Lin Ling. The experts on the mountain all listened to Lin Ling's words. Even Lord 8, Luo Riyao, and the others waited quietly at the foot of the mountain. However, their expressions were extremely solemn. They were also waiting for Lin Ling to say something. As long as Lin Ling said something, they would definitely join hands to stop the Azure Arch. They would not even frown. Emperor Qing, the hero of Qingzhou, although he used to be someone they looked up to, now that the Qingzhou divine bell had rung, Emperor Qing was no longer Emperor Qing. The Emperor Qing in their hearts had become the third princess. Lin Ling, it seems like you have the final say in the imperial court. The middle-aged man smiled and sat down. That's right, I have the final say. Lin Ling also sat down. At the same time, he asked the third princess to sit beside him. He could see that the third princess was very nervous. However, this was normal. As the Azure Thearch's daughter, the third princess should know how powerful the Azure Arch was. Moreover, the Azure Arch was the third princess' lifelong enemy. Shuiying, you've grown up. The imperial court has been run by you and Qingzhou is proud of you. You are now the Azure Thearch's most promising successor. However, you're still young. Be careful that you don't become a puppet. The Azure Arch took a sip of the tea on the table and muttered to himself. From his appearance, he did not look like an expert who ruled over millions of lives. Instead, he looked like an ordinary middle-aged man. The only difference was that he had been through a lot. Father is right. However, Shuiying will not become a puppet. The third princess glanced at Lin Ling. Her nervous heart had somehow calmed down, and she replied calmly. That's true. However, Father saw that the one who summoned the imperial court was not you. The Azure Arch smiled. His words seemed calm, but they were like a sword in the wind, killing without leaving a trace. His Excellency Lin Ling's ambition is not in Qingzhou, so I believe in him. The third princess knew that the Azure Arch was trying to sow discord, So she did not fall for it. Very good. Don't use people you don't trust. In this aspect, you are better than the other princes. However, father will give you a piece of advice. I wonder if Shuiying will listen? The Azure Tharch put down his teacup, and his expression became serious. There's no need. The third princess will not hand over the emperor's mandate. Azure Tharch, you have already stepped down. Do you want to break the rules left behind by the gods? However, at this moment, Lin Ling spoke with a faint smile. He had vaguely guessed the Azure Thearch's intention, so he rejected the Azure Thearch's offer. It seemed that the Azure Tharch wanted the emperor's mandate from the third princess. The Azure Thearch's eyes flickered as he looked at Lin Ling. Apparently, he was surprised by Lin Ling's wisdom. He smiled and said, "Although I have stepped down, there is no new Azure Tharch in Qingzhou. Therefore, I still have a chance to become the Azure Tharch. Qingzhou is my people, and I have an obligation to protect it." Hearing this, Lin Ling smiled and did not say anything. He just drank his tea calmly. In fact, Lin Ling had already figured out the Azure Thearch's plan over the years. No matter how the four magnates fought, the Azure Tharch had never shown himself. It turned out that he wanted the strongest emperor's mandate to be born among the magnates, and then he would take it for himself. And now, he had his eyes on the third princess. The Azure Tharch was very cunning. He was unwilling to let go of the ancient power in the Azure Tharch Imperial Jade Seal. Azure Tharch, you said that Qingzhou is your people, and you have an obligation to protect it? Suddenly, Lin Ling put down his teacup and smiled. That's right. The Azure Tharch did not know why Lin Ling said that. Then, when the three emperors of Crimson State arrived, where was the Azure Tharch? However, Lin Ling's next sentence made the Azure Tharch speechless, as expected of His Excellency Lin Ling. At the foot of the mountain, the people of the imperial court also laughed excitedly. The Azure Tharch wanted to use the emperor's prestige to force the third princess to hand over the emperor's mandate. However, Lin Ling's words trampled the Azure Tharch under his feet and questioned the Azure Thearch's qualifications. The Azure Tharch could not refute that. As expected, the Azure Thearch's face darkened. He did not say anything else and slowly drank his tea. No one knew what he was thinking. Finally, he said softly, "What if I insist on it?" After this sentence, all the calm clouds and breezes were shattered. It was as if a storm was about to descend. In the entire Qingzhou, countless people felt that it was difficult to breathe, as if the sky was falling on them. The leaders of the magnates, the Empress Dowager, and other experts all looked at the imperial court. The Azure Tharch went to the third princess. Has the Azure Tharch finally made his move? As expected, he did not want to give up the Azure Thearch's position. The third princess is in trouble. The person behind the imperial court asked. "Grandma, she should be coming out soon." The four magnates thought to themselves. The Qing continent's great storm was about to erupt. Chapter 2985. Grandma Wen Dao has appeared. Protect the third princess. Yes, below the ancient mountain, the cultivators' expressions drastically changed. They were all planning to rush up the mountain to protect the third princess. Sakura and the others also unleashed their terrifying auras, as if they were facing a great enemy. The third princess looked at Lin Ling without saying anything. She didn't know what to do with the Azure Emperor's presence, so she could only look at Lin Ling and let Lin Ling make the decision. Lin Ling was still drinking tea with a calm expression. After 3 sips, he finally put down the teacup. If the Azure Emperor insists, then the imperial court will fight with the sword. Yes, when the teacup fell down, a sharp aura shot out to fight against the Azure Emperor. Qing State was shaken. No one expected Lin Ling to represent the imperial court and make such a decision. One had to know that he was facing the Azure Emperor, the strongest divine emperor in Qing State, the one who carried the heavens will of the 9 states, the one who controlled the ancient power. Lin Ling is crazy. Good. Let the Azure Emperor destroy the imperial court. The Azure Emperor's anger will turn Qing State upside down. However, who would have thought that the Azure Emperor still wouldn't give up the Azure Emperor's imperial jade seal? As expected of a cunning old fox, the second imperial court wants to be the first to eat crabs, but it has been targeted by the Azure Emperor. The magnates were shocked and helpless at the same time. So they were all pawns. No wonder the Azure Emperor sent out the message of the 8 gods' heavenly palace. Everything was for them to seize the heavens' will of the Son of Heaven, so that he could reap the benefits. If the imperial court wanted to become the first light of the great Azure divine dynasty, they must step over the Azure Emperor. Moreover, the true flag of the imperial court, Lin Ling, must face the Azure Emperor's monstrous wave head-on. Master. At this moment, the third princess was also shocked by Lin Ling's choice. Fighting against the Azure Emperor was definitely disadvantageous for the imperial court and would even benefit the other magnates. However, Lin Ling still chose to fight with the sword and refused to compromise. She knew that this result would be very tragic, but she recalled what Lin Ling had said to her. Since ancient times, the process of being crowned emperor had never been smooth sailing. Sometimes, opportunities were born in the midst of danger. Thinking of this, she stood up straight. Her white robes fluttered like a fairy as she looked down at the lotus arch. Under Lin Ling's command, everyone pointed their swords at the strongest emperor god in Green State. At this moment, the Lotus Emperor's expression was very calm as he looked at everyone with his deep eyes. Finally, his gaze landed on Lin Ling. Lin Ling, you come from the insignificant North Territory and practice martial arts at the Resplendent Academy. However, I never expected that the person who would ultimately decide the Azure Prefecture God Emperor would be such a nameless person. He had obviously investigated everything about Lin Ling and was surprised by the changes brought about by Lin Ling. And his words also gave Lin Ling a very high evaluation. It's just the Azure Prefecture God Emperor. It's not a big deal. However, Lin Ling also spoke. His words made the Lotus Arch frown. This was because Lin Ling didn't care about his evaluation. He even felt that something as big as affecting the entire Green State was child's play to him. Such a person, and such words made the Lotus Arch feel that he wasn't a rising star at all. Instead, he was more like a saint of the 9 states. Alright, then let me ask you, will I fail today? The Lotus Arch smiled and spoke again. With me here you can't win. Lin Ling also replied. In fact, he wasn't confident in his heart. However, the arrow was already knocked on the bow, and he had to release it. If he didn't cross this final hurdle, he, Lin Ling, wouldn't be able to leave Green State in peace. At this point, there was no need to waste any more words. Hence, Lin Ling drew his sword. His 4 dantians merged and erupted with all his strength. The headless elder appeared behind him. Wisps of black demonic aura lingered on the tyrannical Song sword, causing the entire sword to turn pitch black. This sword was like a demon's sorrow. Sword of the gods. The Lotus Arch stared at Lin Ling's sword and finally stood up. He took a step forward. Although it seemed slow, he had already appeared in front of Lin Ling. A palm, which contained the divine power of the entire Green State, slammed toward Lin Ling's sword with overwhelming force. The Lotus Arch has made his move. Lin Ling is dead meat. Seeing this, a roar came from Green State. Was the strongest battle in Green State about to take place? Everyone seemed to see a young man in a blue robe, holding a sword in the temple. It was as if he was going to cut down the oldest divine emperor of Green State. However, would he succeed? Rumble. Lin Ling's expression was solemn. He slashed out with his sword. The black sword was sparkling and dazzling. Bang! In front of him a palm struck. It stirred up the power of the universe and blocked the sword. Lin Ling's eyes flickered. After he obtained this mysterious scabbard, he could fuse all the power of his essence, chi, and spirit. His sword was extremely powerful, but it was the first time it was blocked by someone. The Sage-to-be realm. The Lotus Arch was definitely an expert of the Sage-to-be realm. The two of them clashed. The scene was extremely shocking and unforgettable. With the two of them as the center, terrifying energy swept out in all directions. Other than the third princess, no one could resist it. Lin Ling, I don't like the saying that you are the most respected person in Qing province. The Lotus Arch said indifferently as he pressed his palm on Lin Ling's sword. It was the first time he had used the title of I. Lin Ling did not say anything. He mobilized all his realm essence and continued to block the Lotus Arch's attack. However, the sword was gradually bending. With Lin Ling's current strength, He was no match for the Lotus Arch. In fact, he was the first rising star who could fight against the Lotus Arch as a Stage 3 martial immortal. In Green State, Lin Ling is the real man. Everyone in the Qing province had noticed this as well, and they were all lamenting about it. However, the leaders of the major forces sneered. They knew that Lin Ling could not stop the Lotus Arch. Long time no see, Lotus Arch. However, at this moment, an ancient voice suddenly sounded. In the sky, colorful ribbons floated over and hung in the air. It was extremely dazzling. Those ribbons were mixed with the melody of the Great Tao, and they wrapped around the Lotus Arch. You're finally willing to come out. The Lotus Arch raised his head and revealed an ambitious smile. As if he was not surprised, he gave up on Lin Ling and charged into the sky. Rumble! A shocking battle broke out in the sky. This was the clash between the monarch horoscope and the Great Tao. It was also one of the most intense battles in Green State in many years. That should be Grandma Wen Dao of the imperial court. The Empress Dowager appeared on Mount Qingtai and looked into the distance. Since the Lotus Arch was here, the mastermind of the imperial court would definitely fight. Grandma Wen Dao was so powerful that even the Empress Dowager felt inferior. Only the Lotus Arch could suppress her in Green State. Grandma Wen Dao is definitely not the Lotus Thearch's match. She has been avoiding the Lotus Arch. Now that she has appeared, it's time for her to end her grudge with the Lotus Arch. Grandma Wen Dao will be defeated in the end. That's right. After she dies, the imperial court will no longer have a mastermind. With Lin Ling's strength, it's even more impossible for him to stop the Lotus Arch. The major forces were also discussing spiritedly. They could not help but admit that it was a blessing for them to be able to witness the most powerful battle in Green State. As for the great battle in the sky, the power unleashed was extremely powerful. The Green Province was destroyed, and countless people were watching from afar. Chapter 2986. Ancient Power. As for Lin Ling and the others, they were also watching the battle. Grandma Wen Dao can win, right? Sakura was extremely worried, but Lin Ling shook his head. The Azure Emperor is not simple. His words made the third princess and the others sad. In fact, they had already guessed it, because if Grandma Wen Dao could suppress the Azure Emperor, she wouldn't have been hiding. Grandma Wen Dao, you're finally back. You hid in the north and I found you so easily. Azure Emperor, you've been waiting for this day for so many years. Your goal isn't the Emperor's mandate, but the treasure in my hand. No, I don't just want the treasure in your hand. I want the Azure Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. Azure Emperor, you won't get what you want. Haha, you're the strongest in the Imperial Court, the rest are ants. If you die, who in the Imperial Court can stop me? Who in Qingzhou can stop me? The two of them continued to clash, but Grandma Wen Dao's ribbon was broken, and her aura gradually weakened. She really couldn't stop the Azure Emperor. On the other hand, the Azure Arch became more and more ferocious. He was like a fiend god, an ancient god, stirring up a storm of blood. His palm grabbed out, as if he controlled the world, intimidating the ancient times. Even the fate of the 8 barren lands of the Azure State seemed to be suppressed by him. That terrifying hand grabbed towards Grandma Wen Dao. Grandma Wen Dao is finally dead. Looking at the hand that controlled Qingzhou, the giants of Qingzhou all spoke one after another. No one could stop the Azure Emperor. This was indeed a principle that hadn't changed since ancient times. In Qingzhou, the Azure Emperor was the king. Grandma Wen Dao, Master, the third princess Sakura, and the others shouted. After seeing the Azure Emperor's strength, they knew who they were going against. Grandma Wen Dao isn't the only one in the imperial court. But at this moment, a sword light pierced through the sky. When the Azure Emperor attacked Grandma Wen Dao, the sword slashed down fiercely. The fate of Qingzhou was cut in half by the sword. Before the sword arrived, the sky was split into two. This sword was very powerful. Even the Azure Thearch's expression changed slightly. He had to dodge this attack. He had no choice but to give up on Grandma Wen and disappear. However, a strand of his long hair was still cut off. At the same time, the sword passed by where the Azure Emperor stood, and a blue-robed figure appeared. Lin Ling, it's Lin Ling. He actually helped the Azure Emperor avoid that sword strike. Mr. Lin Ling of Qingzhou, you really deserve this title. Everyone in Qingzhou was shocked. Their jaws dropped. They did not expect that when Grandma Wendao was in danger, the person who saved her was actually Lin Ling. This also meant that Qingzhou was not the same as Grandma Wendao. Lin Ling was also not to be underestimated. At this moment, the Qing Emperor stood in the distance with an extremely ugly expression on his face. He had not expected Lin Ling to be able to unleash an even more terrifying sword attack than before. Literally, Grandma Wendao panted heavily and looked at Lin Ling excitedly. It was as if she saw a junior standing tall and protecting her. The little guy from the sacred land of the rainforest had grown up today. However, Lin Ling nodded at Grandma Wendao. His expression was still serious because the previous sword attack had absorbed all of his energy. This was the final sword attack. The situation was obviously going to become troublesome. After the Azure Emperor recovered from his anger, he stared at the blue-robed young man. He realized that the blue-robed young man was standing with the sword in his hand. The wind blew at his robe, but he did not retreat at all. He knew that he had underestimated Lin Ling. When Lin Ling said that he would fight with the sword, he should have known that Lin Ling would not retreat until death. I was wrong. There are two people in the imperial court that I am afraid of. One is Grandma Wendao, and the other is you, Lin Ling. Correct. The Azure Emperor corrected his previous opinion, but he also treated Lin Ling and Grandma Wendao seriously. You have never seen the power of the ancient times, right? I will show you now. Boom! He wrapped his arms around the sky, causing it to rumble. His eyes were cold, as if he was communicating with an ancient god. Gradually, a dazzling golden light appeared in the sky, and a huge golden palace pressed down. This palace had a huge golden dragon coiling around it, and it was majestic and awe-inspiring, shocking the past and dazzling the present. The power of the ancient times. Boom! Lin Ling and Grandma Wendao said at the same time. This was the power of the Azure Emperor's imperial jade seal. It came from the ancient gods. According to legend, as long as one controlled the ancient power, they could borrow the power of the gods in the Qingzhou region to suppress anyone who disobeyed them. This was also why there were so many experts in the 9 prefectures. But no one dared to seize the Azure Emperor's position, because even a half-sage expert was not qualified. The Azure Emperor is indeed cunning. He has clearly fallen, but he is hiding the power of the ancient times. Grandma Wendao stared at the golden palace in the sky and said seriously, I have a treasure that can restrain the Azure Emperor's imperial jade seal. It was left by the gods, but he broke it, allowing him to use the power of the ancient times for a short period of time. Grandma Wendao, is this why the Azure Emperor has been looking for you? Lin Ling suddenly guessed something. Grandma Wendao immediately nodded. If he obtains the treasure in my hands, then he can have the Azure Emperor's imperial jade seal forever. This is against the rules left by the gods. That's right. So what if today, I must get the Qingzhou jade annulus. At this moment, the Azure Emperor laughed wildly. He looked at Grandma Wendao and Lin Ling with contempt. Before you die, what else do you want to say? At this moment, he looked down on the common people with a mocking attitude. Countless people in the Qingzhou region were trembling in fear. The Azure Emperor was too terrifying. Before you die, what else do you want to say? The Azure Emperor repeated his previous words. It was obvious that he wanted Lin Ling and Grandma Wendao to taste the pain and regret it for the rest of their lives. The golden palace in the sky slowly pressed down and locked onto Lin Ling and Grandma Wendao. They felt that they could not escape. Even Lin Ling's expression was very serious. Although Li Xiaoyao was powerful in his previous life, he had not entered the era of the gods. Haha! Seeing that Lin Ling and Grandma Wendao were silent, the Azure Emperor laughed louder and louder. Ancient power? Hehe, I've been waiting for a long time. Let me see how powerful it is. However, at this moment, an excited voice suddenly rang out, causing the Qingzhou region to fall silent. Everyone's eyes flickered because someone seemed to be curious about how powerful the ancient power was. That person must be crazy. Just when everyone thought that Lin Ling and Grandma Wendao were definitely going to die, a terrifying atmosphere suddenly appeared. A huge fist blasted towards the golden palace in the sky, causing everyone to be dumbfounded. When the ancient power pressed down, the people from the imperial court had wanted to get closer. Unfortunately, they could not withstand the heavenly might. It was difficult for them to even take a step forward, let alone get closer. But now, someone had actually charged out of the ancient energy and clashed with it. Rumble. Everyone saw that person using his fist to collide with the ancient power. Crazy. A complete lunatic. You overestimate yourself. Chapter 2987. He was here to recruit a disciple. That was indeed the case. The person was suppressed by the Golden Palace, and was in a sorry state. However, just as the Lotus Emperor thought that the person would retreat, the person roared. Interesting, very interesting. So this is the ancient power. Unfortunately, the ancient power in Qingzhou isn't very strong. Not very strong? Everyone was stunned. Rumble. Then, they watched as the lunatic charged towards the Golden Palace again. What followed was a thunderous roar. His fists continued to smash the Golden Palace. Moreover, just when everyone thought that the lunatic would die, the lunatic would exceed their expectations and fight even more fiercely. The Golden Palace is floating in the air. Some people were so scared that their faces turned pale. That was because the ancient power that had been suppressed was floating towards the sky. What's going on? The Lotus Emperor was dumbfounded. It was the first time he had seen such a perverted and stubborn person. Damn, it's so hard. It's even harder than Dragon God Fusu. I don't believe that I can't take it down. I've already recovered my strength with the help of the dragon bones. Even if it's Dragon God Fusu, I'll still treat it like a worm. It's just a broken golden palace. I won't leave until I destroy it. Come on, let's see who's harder. The domineering voice continued. Finally, with a loud roar, the golden palace was overturned. Although it wasn't destroyed, the Lotus Emperor had lost control. The Lotus Emperor's expression instantly changed. He was like a duck that had been grabbed by the neck. The Qingzhou martial artist's jaws dropped to the ground. That was because a mysterious person had suddenly appeared and started fighting with the Golden Palace. How could there be such a person in this world? The overturned Golden Palace was floating in the sky. Then a skinny figure walked down from the sky. As he walked, he spat out saliva. I have to say, this thing is really scary. Even his slightly shocked voice could be heard. Although he looked miserable, no one dared to laugh at him. That was because they couldn't laugh at someone who could send the ancient power flying. That person stood in the sky and ignored the people of Qing province. His eyes were searching for something in the surroundings. He was an old man in his 50s. He wore a gray robe and had white hair. He gave off the feeling of an immortal. Senior, you are really in a good mood. In order to experience how strong the primordial power is, you actually sent it flying. I am impressed. The Lotus Tharch finally realized that this person's strength was at the sage realm. The saints of the 9 prefectures were not people he could afford to offend. Senior, may I ask who you are? I'm the ruler of the Green Prefecture, and I'd like to play host and entertain you. The Azure Emperor said again, and his tone became more polite. Treat my ass. I don't have time to deal with you. I'm here to look for my disciple. The old man looked at Emperor Qing with disdain and said indifferently, recruiting disciples? I am willing to serve you. There is no one in the Qing province that I don't know. I wonder who Senior wants to recruit as a disciple? The Lotus Emperor's expression changed slightly when he heard this, and he continued to smile. That expert's attitude was very arrogant, but he had the right to be arrogant. When they heard that the old man was recruiting disciples, the entire Qing province started to tremble. Some geniuses and experts were eager to make a move. They hoped that this mysterious expert would take a fancy to them. It was said that the saints of the 9 prefectures only needed to listen to his preaching to turn an ordinary person into a supreme martial artist. Who wouldn't be moved by such an opportunity? I hope he will take a fancy to me. Perhaps this senior is here for me. It wasn't just the 99 crown princes. Even the old left minister and the others were moved. They even floated in the air, as if they were afraid that the senior would miss them. This person is at the sage realm. He is an extremely rare expert in the 9 prefectures. Granny Wendao's eyes kept sparkling, and there was a hint of respect in her eyes. Her words caused Lin Ling, who was beside her, to smile bitterly because he could tell that the old man was Xing Xiuyin from the Spirit Province that he had seen in the Awakening Dragon Palace. He didn't expect Xing Xiuyin to be so powerful. One had to know that when Xing Xiuyin joined forces with him to fight against the Awakening Dragon God, Xing Xiuyin was in an extremely sorry state. However, Lin Ling thought about it and understood. At that time, Xing Xiuyin seemed to have been seriously injured and didn't use his full strength. Now he should have recovered all his strength. Since he was recruiting disciples, was there anyone in Qing province that he took a fancy to? Old man, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Thinking of this, Lin Ling said faintly, Old man. The moment he said that, the entire Qing province was shocked. That senior's strength was obvious to all. But Lin Ling actually called him an old man? Lin Ling, how dare you? That's a senior. Hurry up and kneel down and admit your mistake. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless. The 99th prince and the others shouted angrily. They reprimanded Lin Ling and also wanted to attract the old man's attention. Even the Azure Emperor frowned. Lin Ling's life had been saved by that senior. Not only was this fellow not grateful, but he actually called that senior an old man. It should be known that all strong cultivators had their own pride. If they were humiliated by others, it was possible that they would destroy the entire Azure state. Little Li, don't talk nonsense. He's the one who saved us. Grandma Wendao was shocked and hurriedly said worriedly, What's the big deal? It's not like this old man hasn't been saved before. If it weren't for someone, he would have died in the tomb. There's nothing to be arrogant about. To everyone's surprise, Lin Ling said disdainfully. What he said was the truth. If it weren't for Lin Ling's appearance, Xing Xiuyin would have died at the hands of the Awakening Dragon God. You're rebelling. Oh my God. When those words were said, Qing province was thrown into chaos again. Everyone was afraid that the mysterious old man would go crazy and destroy Qing province. At that moment, Xing Xiuyin smiled. He had already seen Lin Ling, so he nodded and said, No one is allowed to call me old man. That's an insult to the senior. As expected, the senior is furious. Many people's expressions changed drastically. They could guess what was going to happen next. However, the old man's next words caused Qing Zhou to become silent. But only you have the right to do so. Only Lin Ling had the right to do so? They didn't know that Xing Xiuyin had saved Lin Ling's life today. But in the past, Lin Ling had also saved Xing Xiuyin's life. Hence, they had paid each other back. I'm here for you today. Lin Ling, do you want to be my disciple? Xing Xiuyin spoke again with a serious expression. Without a doubt, those words were like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. What? You specially came to Qing province to look for me? Even Lin Ling was shocked. He didn't expect the old man to recruit him. That's right. Are you willing? Yes. Xing Xiuyin smiled and nodded. Seeing that, everyone was envious. To be able to become the disciple of a saint was like stepping into the clouds and dominating the 9 states. Why is this happening? Yes, the expressions of the 99th prince and the others were extremely ugly. Previously, they had constantly showcased their abilities to attract the senior's attention. However, the senior didn't even look at them. He didn't even look at them. On the other hand, Lin Ling had scolded the senior, but the senior had recruited him as a disciple. The difference in treatment was too great. Was the senior a masochist? The more he was scolded, the more he liked it. Chapter 2988. Not just anyone can call me an old man. Let me think about it. Just when they thought that Lin Ling would definitely agree, Lin Ling frowned and said, with his experience and knowledge, he didn't need a master. However, his words were earth-shattering. Everyone's breathing quickened. Even Grandma Wendao almost wanted to grab Lin Ling and make Lin Ling acknowledge him as his master. No, you must be my disciple. As for Xing Xiuyin, he wasn't angry at all. Instead, he became anxious. When they were at Wake Dragon Palace, he had already decided that Lin Ling would be his disciple. Trying to run away? No way. What's the benefit of being your disciple? Can I have cultivation resources? Lin Ling pondered again and said slowly. He lacked cultivation resources. If that senior could provide him with cultivation resources, it wouldn't be bad. Most importantly, that senior had left a good impression on him. Moreover, although he had unlimited potential, he still needed some time to establish himself in the 9 states. Therefore, he also needed a huge protective umbrella. No problem. Whether you want the stars or the moon, I'll agree to it. Xing Xian nodded immediately, as if he was afraid that Lin Ling would go back on his word. All right, then I'll reluctantly become your disciple. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded reluctantly. Looking at his expression, he was actually a little unwilling. Beside him, Grandma Wendao almost gave Lin Ling a punch. This brat was too arrogant. Haha, that's great, that's great. Lin Ling, you'll become my first disciple. I have a disciple too. Ha 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 ha. Of course, Xing Xian didn't think so much. When he saw Lin Ling nodding, he instantly laughed excitedly. This caused the entire Qing state to be filled with his laughter. Everyone was silent. Is he here to accept a disciple or to acknowledge a master? Why do I feel like he's so happy to acknowledge a master? Sakura and the rest stared at the legendary saint and were speechless. Of course, the silence in Qing state didn't last long. Old man, please accept me as your disciple. That's right, damn old man. My martial arts foundation is solid. Be my master. I'll give you a chance. At this moment, a series of reprimands rang out. The 99 Crown Prince, the left minister, and the others all spoke out one after another. Their eyes were burning with passion. This made the people of Qingzhou dumbfounded. But they soon reacted. The 99 Crown Princes, and the rest were cursing the sage senior. But in reality, they were learning from Lin Ling. After all, saints would more or less have some eccentricities. They wouldn't like obedient disciples, but they would be tempted by disciples who acted differently from ordinary people. Perhaps these saints who had lived for countless years would prefer disciples with unique personalities. The 99th Prince and the others reacted so quickly. I also want to scold that senior. All sorts of thoughts surfaced in everyone's minds. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Many people wanted to follow suit. However, would they receive the same treatment as Lin Ling? This was obviously impossible. Old man? You're calling me old man. At this moment, Xing Xian's gaze shifted and landed on the 99 Crown Princes and the others. He was a little surprised. Why would these ants scold him for no reason? That's right, you're a damn old man. The 99 Crown Prince was the first to speak. The Prime Minister next to him was afraid that he would be one step slower, so he also spoke. You're an old man. In their opinion, if Lin Ling could become a saint, so could they. However, they didn't know that Lin Ling and Xing Xian had interacted before at Wake Up Dragon Palace. They were friends who had gone through life and death together. How could they compare to him? Very well, very well. I can still accept a junior calling me an old man. But the two of you don't look much younger than me. And yet you're calling me an old man? Xing Xian laughed coldly. I dare you to call me an old man again. His last sentence caused the 99 Crown Princes and the others' hearts to thump. Their bodies continued to tremble. Could it be that they had called him wrongly? No, this senior was testing their courage. Old man. The 99 Crown Prince gritted his teeth and looked up at the old man. His face was full of fearlessness. He wanted to let the saint know that he, the 99 Crown Prince, was also a peerless genius. His head was the sky, his feet were on the ground, and his heart was higher than the sky. He would definitely be valued by the saint. Bang! However, just as he finished speaking, a mysterious force turned into a huge palm and slapped down fiercely. The 99 Crown Prince was instantly reduced to ashes. Even before he died, he didn't know why the senior wanted to kill him. Didn't the senior like geniuses with character? This turn of events stunned the Prime Minister and the Left Minister. Their faces were ashen. Why wasn't the senior angry when Lin Ling called him old man? Instead, he liked it. On the other hand, when they called him old man, they were instantly killed. I hate it when people call me old man. Because I'm not old. Without waiting for the Prime Minister and the others to speak, Xing Xian waved his sleeves again. An ancient force formed and killed the Prime Minister and the Left Minister. The leader of the three magnates died just like that. His death was as light as a feather. It was because they called him old man. At this moment, Qing province was completely silent. Everyone was trembling. They couldn't understand these eccentric seniors at all. Lin Ling laughed sarcastically. He didn't expect the 99 crown prince and the others to end up like this. Of course, he didn't understand why the 99 crown prince and the others were cursing Xing Xiyun. Weren't they courting death? Chapter 2989. The outcome had been decided. Senior, this is a matter of Qing state. The fight for the Lotus Thearch's Imperial Jade Seal is unavoidable. The Lotus Thearch roared as he tried to explain himself. He began to retreat. He had already lost the ability to control his ancient powers. He was no match for the sage in a one-on-one battle. I know, I understand, but so what? Xing Xian stepped forward slowly and walked toward the Lotus Thearch. Everyone watched as the legendary Lotus Thearch retreated like an ant, begging for mercy. A strange thought rose in their minds. The Qing State Thearch was not as scary as they thought. Everyone turned to look at Lin Ling, and their expressions turned serious. Qing State revered Lin Ling. This was what the Crimson State cultivators had left behind before they left. Now that they saw it, it was indeed so. You can't kill me. I'm the Lotus Thearch. I'm a person who carries the gods' rules. There are still the 9 destined lands near Qing State. Those seniors will save me. The Lotus Thearch panicked. However, his words made Xing Xian frown. He seemed to understand the gods' rules, so he did not kill the Lotus Thearch. Although you're no longer the Lotus Thearch of Qing State, you used to be someone the gods valued. Therefore, I won't kill you today. Xing Xian stopped in his tracks. The Lotus Thearch heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. It was as if he had taken a stroll outside the gates of hell. When he calmed down, he realized that he was drenched in sweat. However, just because I won't kill you doesn't mean I won't teach you a lesson. However, before the Lotus Thearch could relax, a cold gust of wind appeared in front of him. In the next instant, the sound of a slap was heard. The sound of the slap was like a thunderstorm, and it did not stop. Everyone looked up at the sky. Their expressions were very interesting, because they did not know how many slaps the Lotus Thearch had received. When the sound finally stopped, the Lotus Thearch's face was swollen. His eyes were narrowed into slits. It was painful to look at him. Do you admit defeat? Xing Xian stood in front of the Lotus Thearch and said calmly. Yes, the Lotus Emperor's face was swollen, and it was extremely difficult for him to speak. Then I'll spare your life. However, Lin Ling is my disciple. If anything happens to him, I'll exterminate your entire clan and the entire Qing province. I hope everyone will remember this. Xing Xian nodded slightly and looked at the entire Green province. Those words were clearly meant for the entire Qing province. At this moment, everyone in Qingzhou knew that the next Emperor Qing would definitely be the 3rd princess. On Green Mount Tai, the Empress Dowager was as pale as ashes. She was so scared that her body was trembling. Qing State had completely changed. If not for Lin Ling, the imperial dynasty would have been wiped out today. If it wasn't for Lin Ling today, Lin Ling, this great enemy, would have died without a doubt. Without Lin Ling, she would still be the Empress Dowager. However, in the chaos of the universe, everything was subject to change. There were no ifs in anything. Now everything had changed. She, who had once dominated millions of lives, had to think about her own safety. Given the hatred between Lin Ling and her, Lin Ling would definitely kill her. In fact, she had also sensed Lin Ling's cold gaze. It seemed to penetrate the endless clouds and land on Green Mount Tai. At this moment she was very panicked. This was the first time she had been so panicked since she became the Divine Empress of Qing Province. However, Lin Ling did not do anything, nor did he ask Xing Xian to kill the Empress Dowager. This was because the Empress Dowager had destroyed the rainforest's sacred ground. Lin Ling wanted to take revenge personally. Only then would he be worthy of those who had died. You may leave. Lin Ling's voice floated in the sky. It seemed calm, but it was filled with endless majesty. Thank you. The Lotus Emperor was the first to speak. However, before he left, he also looked deeply at Lin Ling and the 3rd princess. He thought that today was the day to decide everything. He thought that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. He was the real oriole. However, The outcome told him that the world was unpredictable. Moreover, before he left, he saw the murderous eyes of his daughter, the third princess. He knew that the third princess would definitely kill him in the future. And such an enemy, he could only watch as she grew, but he could not kill her. The indescribable feeling was unimaginable. After the Lotus Emperor left, the people of the various magnates also dispersed. However, it was clear that the Imperial Dragon Court, the Blue Flame Army, and the left minister's residence were all disbanded. The Imperial Court was the strongest in Qing province. Lin Ling also walked down with Grandma Wendao. Xing Xian followed Lin Ling with a smile. However, blood suddenly gushed out from his throat, but he forcefully swallowed it down. The ancient power is not so easy to deal with. Yes. Although Xing Xian hid it very well, Lin Ling still noticed it. He said with concern, "Yes, the things left behind by the gods are not as simple as they seem. I used all my strength just now, but I only managed to get rid of that power. I was also injured." Xing Xian was surprised by Lin Ling's knowledge, but he still said with a bitter smile. In reality, not all the great emperors of the 9 prefectures were peak experts. What made them fearful was the ancient power. This was also why there were countless experts in the 9 prefectures. But no one dared to provoke the great emperors of the 9 prefectures. Chapter 2990. Realm-Swallowing Beast. It was a pity that Wan Er and Yi Zhao's talents were limited, so they couldn't achieve great things. Lin Ling's time was limited, so he rarely taught them. This was Lin Ling's biggest regret. As for his disciples in his previous life, there were quite a few of them. The 3 of them were still learning martial arts in the fragments of the flame world. "Master, I understand." The third princess nodded respectfully to Lin Ling. "Second brother, I will leave Qingzhou with you." At this time, Di Shirtian looked at Lin Ling and said. Then he looked at Grandma Wendao and asked for her opinion. "Go. Qingzhou is a small temple after all. The outside world is bigger." Grandma Wendao looked at Di Shirtian and said. Di Shirtian was her disciple. When Lin Ling first came to Qingzhou, Di Shirtian had been learning martial arts with her for many years. "But I am a bit worried about Grandma." Hearing this, Di Shirtian's eyes were a bit wet. "Don't worry. Su will take care of me." Grandma Wendao smiled kindly. Beside her, the cloaked man Su nodded slightly to Di Shirtian. Then Grandma Wendao looked at Lin Ling and said, "Lin Ling, outside Qingzhou, the gods rule the world. You 2 brothers need to take care of each other." "Don't worry, Grandma. I will do it even if you don't tell me." Lin Ling nodded heavily. He looked at all the familiar people and remembered their faces. Not long after, Xing Xian slightly recovered from his injuries. He also walked out. He wanted to take Lin Ling and leave immediately, but Lin Ling refused. He had been fighting and rarely spent time with his family, so he planned to spend this time with his family. After knowing Lin Ling's decision, Xing Xian didn't stop him. He left first, as if he had something important to do. Before leaving, he left a map of Spirit State and asked Lin Ling to find him when he arrived. Lin Ling also nodded in agreement. The reason he wanted to leave the Azure Prefecture was because with the cultivation resources of the Azure Prefecture, he would need even more time to grow. Therefore, he planned to go to a wider sky. In the following days, Lin Ling accompanied Yu Yu and the others. Although it was peaceful, it was also joyous. At the same time, Lin Ling was also stabilizing his realm. With the help of all the treasures in his possession, his 4th Dantian had reached the 2nd level of the martial immortal realm. However, because of that, he was completely broke. In the past, Li Xiaoyao left many treasures in the fortune manor of the 9 states. With my current strength, I can go and take some of them, Lin Ling thought to himself. However, he was also a little excited when he thought about how he was about to embark on the path of revenge. With his current strength, he was not afraid of ordinary late-stage martial immortals. As for peak martial immortals, although he was no match for them, it would not be easy for them to kill him. And this was only the danger they encountered right after leaving Qing province. Who knew what kind of challenges they would encounter in Spirit province? After a long journey, Lin Ling and the other two's realms had become even more solid. Among them, Lin Ling's Dantian's boundary yuan had also become much more condensed and thick. A continent began to appear in front of them. It was like a dragon. We've arrived at Spirit Province? Sakura's eyes suddenly lit up. During these days, they had traveled along the east border, and had also gone to many realms. They experienced the characteristics of those realms, which made the journey less boring. TSK, a continent floating in the void of the universe, but it's not a realm. What a spectacle! Meng Lu clicked his tongue in wonder, because the continent in front of them seemed to be formed by countless gravel. They couldn't see the end of it, and it meandered like a dragon. That's the dragon's tongue Fong. Lin Ling looked at the map and said, "It's not Spirit Province, but it's the only way to pass through Spirit Province. It means that we're getting closer and closer." Haha, that's good. Spirit Province, wait for me. Our three great prodigies of Qing Province are here. Sakura laughed loudly, and took the lead to shoot toward the continent in front of them. Lin Ling and Meng Lu looked at each other, and hurriedly followed suit. The meandering beach-like continent looked like a dragon from afar. Only when they arrived did they realize that it was extremely majestic. It wasn't smaller than Qing Province, and it was filled with plants that soared into the sky. The roars of divine beasts could be heard from time to time. The moment they landed on the ground, Lin Ling and the others felt the rolling pressure. Lin Ling and the others walked slowly in a direction. However, not long after, Lin Ling suddenly stopped in his tracks and revealed an excited smile. Our luck isn't bad. We actually encountered the wild grass of Celestial Fire Star. Not far away, a plant with sword-like leaves was quietly planted on the ground. The leaves were fiery red and exuded a domineering aura. Sakura and the others even saw unknown demonic beasts that approached the plant, and were instantly sliced into pieces. This is a spirit herb that's extremely helpful to fire elemental talents. Lin Ling took a big step forward, and walked towards the spirit grass excitedly. Lin Ling, be careful. Meng Lu had never seen such a divine herb before and couldn't help but remind him worriedly. It's fine. Although these herbs are powerful, they don't cause much harm to fire elemental cultivators. Instead, they can increase my talent. It seems that this dragon tongue Fong should be a paradise for spirit herbs. Lin Ling replied. However, just as he was about to collect it, several laughter suddenly rang out. Waha, the wild grass of Celestial Fire Star. If it were placed in an auction, it would be a treasure worth 5 million royal crystals. We're rich. We've encountered some trash during this period of time. Now we finally have a big harvest. Big brother, I've taken a fancy to that extreme weapon. This time, I have the money to buy it. 3 figures walked out of the forest, and were extremely excited. The 3 cultivators had bald heads and bulky figures. They were wearing the same outfit, and their cultivations were all in the 6th layer martial immortal realm. They ignored Lin Ling and the others as soon as they appeared, and stared at the stalk of grass greedily. Next, they didn't say anything and directly wanted to pick it. One of the fire elemental cultivators reached out his hand, and wanted to hold the wild grass of Celestial Fire Star in his hand. However, before his hand touched the grass, an arm moved faster than him, and landed on the wild grass of Celestial Fire Star. Then it fiercely pulled. Such an unforeseen event caused the 3 of them to narrow their eyes. In fact, they had already seen Lin Ling and the others. However, when they saw that they were at the initial stage of the martial immortal realm, they ignored them. However, they didn't expect the 3 of them to be so insensible. Not only did they not leave, but they even took the initiative to snatch the spirit herb. Do you know what you're holding? One of the bald men raised his cold eyes, and looked indifferently at Lin Ling and said, "We'll give you a chance to explain. Say it. Why are you so stupid? You're courting death at such a young age. If you explain well, we'll spare your lives." The other 2 spoke one after another, and their faces were as gloomy as water. At that moment, Lin Ling slowly collected the wild grass of Celestial Fire Star, and looked at the 3 brothers with a faint smile. He looked very calm. Don't think that we'll show mercy just because you're being polite. Chapter 2992. Fairy Lu. Then I'll give you an explanation. Lin Ling was still smiling, but at the same time he punched out. If you don't want to die, scram. Rumble. That punch contained the power of the realm-devouring beast and the roar of the dragon god. The man closest to Lin Ling changed his expression and anxiously tried to block, but it was obviously useless. He was sent flying by the punch and broke countless trees. The other two were dumbfounded. Even the bald man's head was shining, as if he did not expect the little guy in front of him to be so fierce. We three brothers will give you a chance to explain. At the same time, Indra and Ming Lu walked over with cold faces. Although their cultivation levels were not high, they were the three strongest geniuses in Qingzhou. Ordinary middle-stage martial immortals were nothing in their eyes. Fuck, we've kicked an iron plate. 3 big shots, please spare our lives. The two bald men's mouths trembled, and they knelt down directly. This kind of change made Sakura and the others very unhappy, because after leaving the Azure province, they all wanted to see the strong practitioners of the 9 provinces. However, these 3 bald burly men, although they looked tall and sturdy, they were only good for looking but useless. As the saying goes, one does not hit a smiling person. Since they had knelt down and begged for mercy, Lin Ling and the other 2 did not bother to attack anymore. 3 big shots, please spare our lives. The 2 men were still kneeling on the ground with bitter smiles on their faces. Who are you? What's around here? Lin Ling shook his head and asked. We're rogue cultivators looking for treasures here. There's a huge city nearby called Dragon Tooth City. It's a lawless area, and the treasures we find are sold there. Moreover, there are many things we can buy there. The 2 men said at the same time. Get up, tell us the direction, and then go by yourselves. It's hard to say, but we're going back to the city. If you don't mind, I'm willing to lead the way. Hearing this, Lin Ling glanced at Sakura, and Lin Ling, seeing them nod, Lin Ling also agreed. Although they were in an unfamiliar place and shouldn't trust anyone, the 3 of them weren't very strong. Therefore, Lin Ling wasn't afraid of them playing any tricks. 3 big shots, follow me. In the distance, the bald man who had been sent flying also walked back with a bitter smile on his face. After that, the 3 of them led the way while Lin Ling's group of 3 followed behind them. However, along the way, Lin Ling finally understood why these 3 fellows were so easy to talk to. It was because the demon beasts in the forest were extremely formidable, and the 3 of them were utterly unable to deal with them. Chapter 2995. Break out of the encirclement. Break out of the encirclement. If they continued to waste time, it would only make the situation worse. Thus, Lin Ling whispered to Sakura and Meng Hao. Okay, go that way. Sakura nodded. He turned into a skeleton and attacked in one direction. The surrounding people were stunned. They didn't speak, but they all erupted with their full strength, wanting to stop Lin Ling's group from breaking out of the encirclement. This was because if Lin Ling's group was surrounded, no matter how strong they were, they wouldn't be able to fight against a sea of people. Sooner or later, they would be obliterated in the waters of the Heavenly River. This was also the reason why they weren't in a hurry before. They wanted Lin Ling's group to panic. If that happened, it would be easier for them to deal with Lin Ling's group. You want to run? Seeing Sakura rush over, a martial artist coldly spat out a sentence. He urged the power of his world essence to surge. The power of the universe was extremely strong, reaching 70%. Sakura, I'm helping you. Meng Hao chased after Sakura, also erupting with the power of the demon god's tomb, causing the nearby area to turn pitch black. It's useless. An old man shook his head. He stretched out his 5 fingers, his fingers ferocious. They were like withered trees entwined in myriad worlds as they attacked Sakura. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Sakura and Meng Hao immediately joined forces and urged out a powerful attack, instantly destroying the old man's attack. However, the old man sneered. He didn't continue to fight with Sakura and Meng Hao. He stepped back and retreated. As soon as he stepped down, someone else immediately took his place. It's useless. The new powerhouse even said indifferently, his words mixed with disdain. Lin Ling was at the back. At this moment, a large number of powerhouses rushed over, surrounding him and wanting to nibble away at Lin Ling's group. Demon God body. Lin Ling's pupils were extremely cold. Seeing that Sakura and the rest were obstructed in their attempt to break through, he could only temporarily block the people behind him. He stopped in his tracks, and his powerful corporeal body transformed into a fist, rolling towards the people behind him. It's useless. He was a 9th-level martial immortal. At this moment, he condensed his realm essence into a finger and shot it towards Lin Ling at the speed of 25 worlds. Bearing Cloud Demon Finger. This finger contained 100% of the power of the universe. It was terrifying. Behind that person, the others slowed down their pace and walked over expressionlessly. In their opinion, although that young man was powerful, he was definitely not a match for a 9th-level martial immortal. That finger should have been able to take the youth's life. Rumble. Fist and finger collided, and a deafening sound rang out. This caused Sakura and Meng Lu to still be unable to open a gap. Big brother, attack them with all your strength. At this moment, Lin Ling's voice sounded out, and it was mixed with a wisp of anxiousness. All right, Sakura and Meng Lu glanced at each other and nodded, because if they continued fighting, they would be tired, and their realm essence would be exhausted. Moreover, the other party had successively sent people to help them. This would be disadvantageous to them, so they had to open a gap immediately. Both of them activated powerful martial techniques, causing the sky to shatter. Ferocious realm essence energy blasted out in all directions. In the vast forest, the scattered independent cultivators' expressions changed slightly. Moreover, they looked into the distance. They knew that a fierce battle had occurred there. It should be those 3 young men. Someone sighed. They had a feeling about this since long ago, because the Liu family from the Heavenly Court and the Bailey family from Dragon Tooth City would definitely not let those 3 people go. Young Master Bailey's words from before were actually just to deceive those 3 people. At this moment, they didn't think that Lin Ling's group could break out of the encirclement. Rumble. The deafening sound continued to resound. Life and death would be decided at this moment. Sakura and Meng Lu's joint attack instantly increased the pressure on the strong cultivators at the front. However, they still gritted their teeth and endured it. It's useless. It was to the extent that those lightly injured cultivators even said indifferently as they retreated, "Die." At this moment, a voice that sounded like it came from the depths of hell sounded out. This time, they obviously couldn't retreat, because after Sakura and Meng Lu's attack, it was Lin Ling's attack next. The 3 of them joined forces and forcefully broke out of the encirclement with their domineering strength. Lin Ling was the last to attack. His attack was a sword from his scabbard. The fusion of essence, energy and spirit, the 3 great powers, gathered all of their killing intent into one sword. It was as if there was only one sword in the sky and earth, a sword of killing that could destroy everything. Chapter 2998. Killing to vent their anger. Their speed is 40 worlds. In the water, that's their territory. On the other hand, our speed has been suppressed, so we're not suitable for battle. Moreover, we need cultivation resources right now. Perhaps the Sea God clan will be of help to us. As if sensing Meng Lu's confusion, Lin Ling secretly transmitted his voice. Meng Lu immediately nodded. At the same time, he also discovered that in the face of danger, Lin Ling was much calmer than him. Along the way, the several Sea God men angrily shouted at Lin Ling, "You'd better behave yourselves. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." They also saw that Lin Ling was too calm. He didn't have the panic that an ordinary person should have. This made them a little unhappy. "Are we not going to behave now?" Lin Ling replied with a smile. His words left them speechless. They felt that Lin Ling had come here to play. In fact, even Meng Lu felt the same way. Not long after, an ancient black mountain canyon appeared in front of them. Layer upon layer, it was submerged in rolling waves. However, in the canyon, a large number of tall figures were gathered. They were all members of the Sea God clan. Lin Ling, look. Suddenly, Meng Lu cried out in surprise. This was because a large number of treasures were scattered around the canyon. They were all weapons, and there were even some scattered extreme artifacts. Yet such precious treasures were scattered everywhere like trash. It was impossible not to be surprised. Those are the things left behind by the martial artists who entered the heavenly river. Hearing Meng Lu's voice, the leader of the Sea God clan woman said indifferently. Then, she ignored Lin Ling and Meng Lu, and led the others forward. They didn't seem to be afraid that Lin Ling and Meng Lu would escape. However, Lin Ling could also see that if they wanted to escape here, unless they had 50 worlds of speed, it would be an act of suicide. These Sea God bloodlines are only a type of branch bloodline. In reality, there are quite a few people who possess the Sea God bloodline, even humans. However, this group of people can't give birth to Jie Yuan, but their bodies are extremely powerful. Therefore, they can't use those weapons, and the weapons have become trash. Lin Ling looked ahead and explained indifferently. I see. Meng Lu nodded and suddenly asked curiously. Lin Ling, are you familiar with the Sea God bloodline? It's a little familiar, Lin Ling said with a smile as he strode forward. In his previous life, Li Xiaoyao had defeated countless geniuses of the 9 continents. One of them had the pure bloodline of the Sea God, and could summon the sea of the 9 continents. He was extremely powerful, and was ranked in the top 10 of Li Xiaoyao's opponents. Unfortunately, he was still defeated by Xiaoyao. Chapter 3003. It's impossible to fly. At the same time, a storm was brewing in Dragon Tooth City, and the entire city was on guard. It was easy to enter the city, but it was harder than ascending to the heavens to leave the city. Capture one person alive in the city. This is the appearance of that person. Anyone who sees it will be heavily rewarded. He's that homicidal maniac? TSK. I didn't expect him to be so young. He caused a storm in the city some time ago. Now we can go search for treasures in the ancient forest without worry. After the ancient city was covered with portraits, those independent cultivators relaxed. So long as that person was trapped in Dragon Tooth City, then they would capture him sooner or later. So they didn't have to worry. At this moment, in an inn in Dragon Tooth City, a masked man was drinking wine, and the eyes beneath the mask were extremely cold. The Bailey clan has a half-saint realm expert. That young Master Bailey is very difficult to kill. This man was Sakura. After he jumped into the surging Milky Way that day, he flowed with the current, and was finally separated from Lin Ling and Lu Ming. Now a year had passed, and he didn't know the whereabouts of Lin Ling and Meng Lu. However, according to the rumors, both Lin Ling and Meng Lu were dead. So Sakura didn't leave. He ceaselessly slaughtered the members of the Bailey clan, and he wanted to kill Bailey Yanwu and Fairy Lu even more. But in the end his plan failed, and he was trapped in the city. This city is really miraculous. I wanted to soar through the sky, but a mysterious force sealed me, causing me to be unable to charge out. I could only leave through the city gate. However, there are countless experts at the city gate, so that path isn't easy to take, Sakura said to himself. During this period of time, his strength had improved, but he was still much weaker than the Bailey clan and Lu clan. Die. Right at this moment, a ray of light slashed towards him. It was sharp and fierce, and it possessed 60% of the energy of the universe. Crack! Sakura threw away the wine cup in his hand, and his right arm transformed into bones that collided with the sword. Cracks instantly appeared on his bones. What? Use your hands to block my sword. The person who had attacked was an old man at the 8th level of the martial immortal realm. He was Sword Immortal Mou from the Eastern Territory. He had thought that the person being hunted was not strong, so he had volunteered. However, he now realized that this 4th level martial immortal realm junior was not weak at all. Hehe, the one who should die is you. The corner of Sakura's mouth revealed a cold smile. His white bony arm swung out and pierced through that old man's chest. You kill me. The old man lowered his head in disbelief. This is what you get for trying to kill me. Sakura sneered and threw the old man away. Then he quickly left through the window. He didn't dare to burst out with his full speed, because he would become the focus of attention. He only wanted to blend into the crowd as soon as possible. Yes, he's in the vicinity. Have everyone in the city narrow down their search target, and focus on searching the nearby area. Sakura had just left and immediately, a strong practitioner appeared and issued an order. Dragon Tooth City was huge, so it would not be easy to find someone in a short period of time. However, if the target of the search was smaller, it would be much easier. Very good, this man is called Sakura. I want to catch him with my own hands. In the Bailey clan, Bailey Yenwu also revealed a cold smile. Among the 3 cockroaches, he was lucky enough to survive. Did he think that he could escape the Bailey clan's pursuit? This was simply a dream. Almost at the same time, the Lu clan also received the news. Lu Xingyun nodded with satisfaction. The homicidal maniac that he had been looking for was finally coming to the surface. He also wanted to see what this cockroach-like person looked like. Not good, my lord. In the ancient forest, another member of our heavenly court has died. However, when the 2 forces were looking forward to it, someone sent the news, which made Lu Xingyun and Bailey Yenwu stunned. Wasn't the homicidal maniac trapped in the ancient city? Why were there still people dying in the forest? How many people died? Lu Xingyun frowned and said, if 1 or 2 people died, it wouldn't be a big deal. Perhaps they died in the mouth of demon beasts. Almost 100 people. All of them are from the heavenly court and the Bailey clan. The man glanced at Lu Xingyun and said nervously. Sure enough, after this sentence, Lu Xingyun's face became extremely ugly. His heart was extremely painful, as if it was cut by a knife. The number of people who died in the heavenly court's branch this time was simply beyond his imagination. This means that 2 of the 3 cockroaches are still alive. Find him, even if he's a god. I want him to fall in the dragon tongue tooth. Lu Xingyun's voice became louder and louder. Obviously he was roaring. On the other side, the Bailey clan was also furious at this moment. Because these 2 pieces of rat feces had stirred up a nest of soup. They even thought that the 2 cockroaches did it deliberately. One of them was outside, while the other was inside. They wanted to uproot them. Finally counterattack. Let's see if you're qualified. Bailey Yenwu said with a cold face. He did not expect the 2 to be so difficult to deal with. He was sure that the 2 foreigners were not ordinary people. They were probably very powerful in their hometown. However, the fierce dragon could not fight the local snake. They could not make any big waves in the Dragon Tooth City. At this moment, a figure in a large cloak was slowly entering Dragon Tooth City. The cloaked figure stopped at the entrance and raised his head to look at the ancient city, while a wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Flying Snow Heavenly Love Formation. Once this formation is set up, those who enter it will not leave. It's an excellent ancient formation for trapping people. Unless one is in the Sage-to-be realm, no one can break out of it. Moreover, this formation covers the whole city. The Lu clan is really generous. However, martial god Qilin used to learn martial arts from me. He didn't learn the essence, but he did learn a lot of skills. The man said lightly. He was Lin Ling. After seeing the giant defensive formation of the city, he immediately felt a sense of familiarity. This formation was taught to martial god Qilin by Li Xiaoyao. Now that someone in the city could set up this formation, it meant that the person was the successor of martial god Qilin. Lin Ling even guessed that the person was the person with the greatest power in the heavenly court in the Dragon Tooth City. In the past, although Lin Ling had killed many people in the heavenly court, they were just small fries. Now he could finally kill a backbone. This was also the first step on his path of revenge against the heavenly court after his rebirth. I'll play with you slowly. Lin Ling put away his thoughts and stepped into the ancient city. Then, he went straight to the auction house, which was also a place for trading. He had a lot of treasures now, and what he needed was imperial crystals. When he arrived at the ancient auction house, the auction had already ended. However, there were still a lot of rogue cultivators around. This was because there were also treasures to be sold around the auction house, but they were not as valuable as the ones in the auction house. Lin Ling knew that the auction had ended through the conversations of passers-by. He simply set up a stall to trade. Chapter 3004. You still have 3 breaths of time. When the treasures fell on the floor, the expressions of the people nearby changed. That's a semi-supreme weapon. What a sharp aura. And it's not just one. Look at that long saber. That's the flying fish flaming wasp saber. the famous weapon of Taoist fire bee. It's extremely powerful. Tisk tsk. I wonder how much it's worth. Many people gathered around quietly, their eyes full of excitement. Although weapons were external objects, powerful weapons could increase a cultivator's strength by 30% or even 50%. Who wouldn't be tempted? However, they were also a little afraid of the cloaked man, because those who dared to set up a stall here must have some confidence in their own strength. However, after they used a secret technique to investigate, they were surprised to find that the cloaked man was only a level 4 martial immortal. This level of cultivation was not very strong, but he had endless treasures. This was very shocking. Everyone's eyes became greedy. The cloaked man was too bold. This drunken dream leaf sword is mine. I didn't expect you to steal it. Right at this moment, a skinny man arrived before the stall and looked at one of the ancient swords with bright eyes. The sword was completely blue and had clouds flowing around it. If one stared at the sword, they would feel as if they were in a dream. This was the extremely famous drunken dream leaf sword. The owner of this sword was a 10th level martial immortal expert. He was quite famous in the Dragon Tungfang region. At this moment, Lin Ling slowly raised his eyes and looked at the thin man in front of him. The man was not tall, but his eyes were sharp. Obviously, he was also a decisive person. You said this sword is yours? Lin Ling said indifferently. That's right. Now you have to return the sword to me and compensate me with a treasure. Then, I'll forgive you for your mistake. The man nodded and said with an extremely tough attitude. The people around sneered secretly and looked at the cloaked man mockingly. They knew that the owner of the drunken dream leaf sword had died in the heavenly river, so the man was not the real owner. He was just looking for an excuse to steal the sword. In fact, how could Lin Ling not know this? He said indifferently, "What if I refuse? Then don't blame me for being impolite." The man took a step forward, and his voice became even colder. Moreover, his hand reached out to grab the sword on the ground. Seeing this, the eyes of the surrounding people flashed. It seemed that they were also planning to make a move. Because the man had forcefully snatched the sword, they could also take advantage of the chaos to snatch away all the treasures of the cloaked man. Moreover, even if they didn't snatch it, others would. However, just as the man was about to grab the sword, Lin Ling's finger was already on the sword. Just one finger was enough to make the man unable to lift the sword. Let go. The man flew into a rage and punched towards Lin Ling with his other hand. This punch contained 50% of the power of the universe. Seeing this, Lin Ling's eyes turned cold. He pointed with his left hand. Get out of my way! The finger collided with the fist, and a cracking sound was heard. The man's left fist was penetrated by the finger, and his entire arm was crippled. The man screamed in pain as he stared at Lin Ling with eyes full of terror. You dare to snatch things with your little strength? Lin Ling said indifferently. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't get out of my way, you'll die. Get out of my way. I was wrong. Get out of my way. The man's expression changed drastically. He finally reacted and hurriedly ran away. However, his eyes were filled with viciousness and unwillingness. After leaving the crowd, he gritted his teeth and said, Good. You dared to cripple my arm. I won't let you leave Dragon Tooth City. Get out of my way. After saying this, he strode away. Obviously, he was going to find help. As for the martial artists around Lin Ling, they didn't dare to make a move to snatch the treasures. They were even glad that the man had made a move to let them know how terrifying the cloaked man was. Don't do things more than 3 times. If you have any ideas about me again, the next one won't be getting out of my way, but death. Get out of my way. Lin Ling sat cross-legged and coldly spat out this sentence. He also knew that Dragon Tooth City was a lawless area, so he didn't have to be afraid. The people around him didn't dare to be arrogant anymore. However, they looked at the treasures with fiery eyes. Finally, someone asked. After all, if they couldn't snatch the treasures, they could at least buy them. 1 million royal crystals for a treasure of the semi-supreme level. If it's any other level, 100,000 royal crystals will do. Lin Ling also calmly quoted the price. So expensive? Wow! People exclaimed. But Lin Ling didn't bother to pay attention to them. The treasures were in his hands. Take them or leave them. People's eyes kept flashing. Seeing that Lin Ling was unwilling to compromise, they finally reluctantly took out their royal crystals to trade. After all, if they missed this opportunity, there wouldn't be another one. Lin Ling was expressionless. He took the royal crystals and threw out the treasures. After an unknown period of time, a voice suddenly came from the front. Reeing, do you know how much money you've wasted by delaying my time? Brother Bailey, I know that you're searching for the cockroach from a year ago. It's a very important matter. However, I saw a treasure. Otherwise, I wouldn't dare to disturb you. That treasure contains a large number of semi-supreme weapons. Brother Bailey definitely won't suffer a loss. That's more like it. The crowd gradually separated. 5 figures appeared in front of Lin Ling's stall and stared coldly at Lin Ling. They're from the Bailey clan. Looking at the young man in the lead, the surrounding people quickly dispersed with a respectful look on their faces. The young man in the lead had a cultivation of the stage 7 martial immortal realm. He seemed to be hiding some trump cards. Therefore, the crowd was quite wary of him. He looked at Lin Ling calmly and said, "How much is that cauldron?" Lin Ling sat cross-legged with his eyes slightly shut. He appeared to be unperturbed, but in reality, he had also heard the words of those few people earlier. In fact, he had even sensed that the man whose arm had been crippled had returned at this moment. He immediately understood what was going on. 1 million royal crystals for a semi-supreme weapon. Lin Ling said indifferently, "So expensive? Don't you think you're being too greedy?" The young man frowned. Lin Ling's attitude annoyed him. He didn't even look at him. "Are you deaf?" However, Lin Ling replied coldly. He knew that this person was doing it on purpose. "You don't know how to be polite. I'm talking to you nicely. How dare you scold me?" The young man's face became angry. He seemed to be using this as a pretext to make a fuss. The surrounding people's eyes flickered. They knew that the people from the Bailey clan were looking for an excuse to attack. After all, it wouldn't be nice to talk about robbing. The Bailey clan didn't want to lose face. However, Lin Ling still sat cross-legged and didn't move an inch. "Can't you hear me?" The young man's eyes were filled with killing intent. Finally, Lin Ling opened his eyes and said, "You have 3 breaths time. Get lost." What an arrogant rogue cultivator. No one has ever dared to say "get lost" in front of me. The price for that word is very high. Chapter 3005. The assassination was coming. Scram! Get lost. However, Lin Ling had already stood up and roared a few times. Was he trying to tell the young man that 1 scram was not enough? How about 3 or 4? "You." The young man was stunned. He hadn't expected the cloaked man to be even more arrogant than he had imagined. He immediately attacked, and a wolf-fang saber appeared in his hand. He looked at Lin Ling and viciously slashed out, causing the wind and clouds to surge. A semi-extreme weapon. Everyone was greatly alarmed as they sensed the terrifying power of the universe. Rumble. However, at this moment, Lin Ling also made his move. He didn't use any powerful martial arts. Instead, he threw out a punch, and with a cracking sound, the huge wolf-fang blade shattered. This time, everyone was shocked. The young man stood there in a daze, holding a broken saber. Scram! If it's not enough, then die. Lin Ling took a step forward, and his godly demon physique descended. It was as if he had the power to uproot mountains and rivers, causing the entire street to shake. Both of them punched out at the same time. Lin Ling already knew that the young man was from the 100 Lane clan. Even if there were no grudges between them, Lin Ling wouldn't let him go. Not to mention, the other party was trying to kill him. This was simply courting death. "Do you know who I am?" Looking at the punch with the roar of the dragon god, the young man's face changed dramatically. "Even if you are Bailey Yenwu, you will still die." Boom! Lin Ling killed the young man with 1 punch. Then, he did not show any mercy and killed the rest of the people. Only the man with the broken arm was left alive. At that moment, the man's face was pale, and he was so frightened that he fell to the ground. "Let me ask you a question. Who is the Bailey clan after?" Lin Ling looked down at the man and said indifferently, "He's one of the 3 youths who escaped a year ago." The man quickly replied, "Thank you." Lin Ling's gaze turned serious. He knew that his big brother was trapped in the city. He had to go help him immediately. After that, Lin Ling raised his foot high and hung it above the man's head, causing the latter's face to be filled with regret. I've already answered your question. You promised not to kill me. When did I promise you anything? In fact, you shouldn't have come back. Lin Ling smirked coldly. His foot stomped down heavily like a dragon's tail. With a boom, the man was turned into a pile of meat. The whole street was split open, shocking the whole city. However, Lin Ling didn't stop. He disappeared from where he stood. So strong, this person's strength is too terrifying. Yeah, I feel like a berserk dragon has infiltrated Dragon Tooth City. Seeing that Lin Ling had disappeared, the rogue cultivators started to discuss among themselves. At this moment, the arena in the east of the city was the arena for life and death battles in Dragon Tooth City. He was an expert at the 10th level of the martial immortal realm. This was the first time he was assassinated by someone. It's because it's you. That's why I want to kill you. The cloaked man walked down from the sky and slowly took off his hood, revealing a handsome face. He was like a god, like the Grim Reaper. It's you? You didn't die. The old man's pupils constricted, because this was one of the three youths. He never thought that there would still be one alive, and even dared to assassinate him. One had to know that there were many experts standing guard not far away. Haha, I didn't expect you to remember me. Fortunately, I also remember you. You were one of the leaders of the last assassination attempt. Lin Ling landed on the ground and said calmly, So what? You escaped last time. You shouldn't have come back. This time, do you think you can escape? I have to admit that you're quite powerful. However, the attack you used before should have been your full strength. However, you failed. A powerful aura spread out from the old man's body. The power of the universe surged as he stared at Lin Ling, as if he was staring at his prey. I just wanted to save some time by assassinating you. Lin Ling smiled. He knew that his brother was trapped in the arena. Therefore, he didn't plan to delay any longer. He stomped on the ground, and the speed of 30 worlds appeared. Mixed with the innate ability of the realm-devouring beast, it turned into a ferocious punch that flew towards the old man like a meteor. I know you're quite capable. However, coming here is the biggest mistake of your life. If you can't kill me in one blow, you'll be hunted down by all the rogue cultivators in the city. The old man sneered. He even thought that Lin Ling was stupid. Even if Lin Ling succeeded in killing him in this place, he would alert the enemy and die in the city. Moreover, Lin Ling couldn't kill him. Rumble. Chapter 3006. It was a massacre. Boom. The two experts collided, and they were evenly matched. I told you that you can't kill me with a single strike. The old man was shocked by the young man's strength. If a level 4 martial immortal could fight against him, what if he was a level 4 martial immortal? That was unimaginable. Fortunately, the young man was too confident. He was walking right into the trap. That's not necessarily true. However, at that moment, a cold voice sounded in front of him. Colorful flames suddenly erupted from the fist, and the power of the universe was born. The old man's expression changed greatly. This mysterious young man could increase his strength? Although he seemed to be evenly matched with the young man, he was actually an arrow at the end of its flight. Therefore, if the young man unleashed a bit more strength, he would definitely not be able to stop him. Crackle. When the god-demon body and the space-time flame appeared, the old man felt a strong realm essence rushing toward him. He finally knew how terrifying Lin Ling was. His fist collided with Lin Ling's fist. However, Lin Ling's fist released a strong realm essence, causing the old man's arm to expand rapidly, as if it was being blown up. The ferocious realm essence even reached his body. The old man panicked. He wanted to retreat, he wanted to run away, and he even wanted to call for help. However, it was too late. No. In the end, with a boom, the level 10 martial immortal expert was only able to shout out one sentence before he was destroyed by the powerful force. It's not difficult to kill you with a single strike. Lin Ling waved his arm, and the space-time flame disappeared into his body. He walked out from the corner. Although the old man was a level 10 martial immortal, Lin Ling was a level 4 martial immortal. coupled with the fusion of the realm essence in his dantian, he had already surpassed the level 10 martial immortal realm. What happened? There seems to be a rumble over there. Hee, that old man is too fierce. He should be doing that kind of thing. However, those two beauties won't be able to take it. I see. I was surprised for nothing. I thought some strong enemy had come. Are you stupid? What kind of expert could come here? Outside the arena, the experts were worried at first, but they gradually relaxed. There were over 100 late-stage martial immortals here. Unless one was a half-sage, who would dare to behave atrociously here? It's your turn. However, just as they finished speaking, a figure wearing a large cloak walked out, causing those people to fall silent. A trace of uneasiness arose in their hearts as they looked around, wanting to find that expert at the 10th level of the martial immortal realm. There's no need to look. That old pervert is already dead. The person who came was none other than Lin Ling. He waved his powerful fist and looked down on these experts like a god. Brat, who are you? He seems to be the young man from a year ago. He's not dead. Someone recognized Lin Ling and shouted, causing the entire space to become deathly silent. Haha, we searched high and low for them, only to find them by chance. I didn't expect that we would be able to catch two people today. We're going to make a great contribution. Although they were surprised by Lin Ling's appearance, they were not afraid of Lin Ling. The reason was that this was the headquarters of the Bailey clan and the Liu clan. Perhaps they thought that they would not die in a place like Dragon Tooth City. 15, 16, 17. At this moment, Lin Ling was expressionless as he calmly reported the number of people. Brat, what are you doing? Someone with a calm temperament couldn't help but ask. Because Lin Ling had appeared alone and was facing so many strong cultivators, this young man was either stupid or had prepared a backup plan. Perhaps he had invited some strong cultivators to help him. I'm going to kill all of you, so I don't want any of you to escape. After Lin Ling reported the number of people, he nodded calmly. There were exactly 98 people, less than 100 people. Arrogant. Hearing Lin Ling's words, the experts all roared. Did this young man want to kill all of them by himself? One had to know that there were many experts in the arena. If all of them came out, this young man would die here, even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Cherish this hard-won sunlight, because you won't be able to see the sun in the sky tomorrow. Lin Ling did not plan to waste any more time. His 4 dantians began to merge, and the fire of time spread throughout his body, causing him to become as bright as a flower. The multicolored flames were extremely dazzling, and even the people in the distance were attracted by them. However, when they saw Lin Ling intending to fight almost 100 people by himself, the passers-by were all in disbelief. At this moment, Lin Ling erupted with the speed of 30 worlds, causing the experts to be unable to react because that speed was too fast. Shameless boasting. One of them was still angrily shouting. He recalled the events of a year ago. At that time, the 3 young men were hunted down like stray dogs. So after a year, the young man would not be able to change anything. He was still a stray dog. Boom. However, just as that person finished speaking, a fist passed through the side of his face, causing his head to spin like a top. In the next moment, he saw his back, and he went crazy. He was even terrified. Could it be that his head had been twisted to the back? Just as this thought appeared in his mind, he felt dizzy, and with a plop he died. You killed the violent tremor blade? In the crowd, someone roared, causing the entire arena to shake. No one expected that a late-stage martial immortal expert would be killed in a single blow. Chapter 3007. No one could stop him. He's too scary. We can't win against him. As time passed, there were only a dozen people left in front of the arena. However, they were all panicking. Compared to a year ago, the young man was like a completely different person. He gave them the feeling that he was an expert in the half-step sage realm. Most importantly, the young man didn't use any martial arts. He only relied on his fists to conquer the world. This was beyond their understanding. Run! The remaining people hesitated for a moment before they started to run in different directions. It's too late to run now. Lin Ling sneered. Naturally, he wouldn't do something as stupid as cutting weeds without removing the roots. He took a step and chased after 5 of them. He looked down at them like a god. Don't go too far. You've already killed so many people. Do you still want to kill all of us? Seeing Lin Ling chasing after them, those people were both angry and scared. Back then, thousands of you chased after the 3 of us. Didn't you also kill all of us? However, the shadow of the Grim Reaper behind them laughed sarcastically. The Grim Reaper's scythe slashed down fiercely. His fist destroyed all the power of the universe and killed 5 people in an instant. They died again. Hurry up and run. It'll be too late if we're late. The faces of the people on the other side turned even paler. They wished they could grow another pair of legs and leave this place. However, their speed couldn't be faster than Lin Ling's 30-world speed. After a moment, Lin Ling's figure appeared in the corner of the arena again. He slowly walked back with 5 corpses in his right hand. Bang! 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 Those corpses fell to the ground, causing the arena door to fall into a deathly silence. This was because everyone was killed. Even those who tried to escape were no exception. This terrifying scene caused the martial artists in the distance to tremble with fear. They couldn't say a word. What happened? Didn't young Master Bailey tell you not to make a ruckus? At this moment, 3 people walked out of the door. They were from the gladiator arena. However, when they saw the scene at the arena door, they were all stunned. Outside the door, blood flowed like a river. Corpses littered the ground. The hundreds of experts from before looked as if they had been eaten by ferocious beasts. Not a single one was left. On the contrary, a man in a large cloak was searching among the corpses and collecting all the treasures. Retreat! Retreat! This scene caused the faces of those people. They only wanted to inform the young master quickly. Wait! However, just as they moved, a lazy and icy voice was transmitted over. The man who was collecting the treasures slowly turned around at this moment. He had delicate features, and there was a friendly smile at the corner of his mouth. His body disappeared, and a scorpion-shaped dagger appeared in his hand. This dagger was extremely extraordinary. It was a poison weapon. He had once used this poison weapon to kill an expert at the 10th stage of the martial immortal realm. This dagger was made from the tail of the universal scorpion. Although it looked ordinary, its power was almost at the level of a semi-extreme weapon. Whoosh! The dagger directly stabbed Lin Ling's back. Success! That person was overjoyed. He didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Perhaps this young man was too confident. At this moment, Lin Ling slowly turned around and looked at that person indifferently. You sneak attacked me? I don't believe that you will let me go. You must be lying to me. Because a long time ago, I learned that one's life is in one's own hands. Never trust others. Ha ha ha. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being too confident and too kind. That person said with a ferocious expression. He wasn't old. He had only cultivated for 3,000 years. He couldn't compare to other old monsters. However, his talent was ordinary. He had reached the martial immortal realm in 3,000 years. This showed how sinister and cautious this person was. How pitiful. There was a way to live, but you chose to die. Lin Ling was expressionless. He pulled out the dagger on his back. With a clench of his hand, the dagger turned into powder. You weren't poisoned? That young man saw that Lin Ling seemed to be safe and sound. His laughing expression disappeared and turned into fear. You underestimated my body too much. Lin Ling looked at him coldly. The young man knelt down with a plop. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I, Lin Ling, am a man of my words. If I say I will let you go, I will let you go. In my eyes, you are not much different from an ant. Killing one more ant or one less, it doesn't affect me much. Unfortunately, you missed this opportunity. Chapter 3008. Translator. Exodus Tales Editor. Exodus Tales, you've offended someone you shouldn't have. I was wrong. Give me another chance, okay? The young man's eyes were moist, and he was practically crying. He hardened his heart and attacked earlier, because he really didn't believe Lin Ling. He thought Lin Ling was playing with him, and would kill him in the end. However, he wronged Lin Ling. In Lin Ling's heart, he was really not worth mentioning. Whether he lived or died didn't matter much. However, He overestimated himself and underestimated Lin Ling at the same time. He didn't want to die. He still had a great future. Bang! Lin Ling revealed an evil smile. His palm landed on the young man's forehead, causing blood to flow out from the latter's forehead. He fell down with a plop and died completely. Lin Ling shook his head helplessly and entered the arena. In his opinion, there was actually such a foolish person. He, Lin Ling, didn't want to waste time, so he couldn't be bothered to kill that ant. In the end, the ant thought too highly of himself and actually came to throw away his life. In this world, there are really many lowly people. At this moment, the fierce battle was still continuing in the enormous arena. Several figures were besieging Sakura, and Sakura was desperately resisting, but his momentum was gradually losing ground. Bailey Yenwu, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. You lied to us. Sakura was roaring furiously as well. On the other side, Bailey Yenwu sat on a chair and drank lightly with a carefree expression. It was as if he was watching a dog being gradually slaughtered. Yell, yell, the louder the better. Bailey Yenwu laughed and said, "The three of you should have come from somewhere else, right? No wonder you were so naive and stupid. Last time, I felt that your strength wasn't weak, so I lied to you to shake hands and make peace. But you really believed it. In fact, if a conflict really happened at that time, with the martial artists I brought, they couldn't stop you at all. So, I shook hands and made peace with you. Otherwise, do you think you country bumpkins could talk to me? You bastard, you'll regret it." Hearing that, Sakura was boiling with anger. Last time, they saw that Bailey Yenwu was easy to talk to. Plus, they didn't want to waste time in Dragon Tooth City, so they made peace. But who knew that although they let Bailey Yenwu go, he didn't let them go? Haha, I, Bailey Yenwu, have never regretted anything. I've never hesitated in my life. You're called Sakura, right? When you go to the underworld after death, tell the god of the underworld that it was me, Bailey Yenwu. Lord Lu, cripple him. Bailey Yenwu drank another mouthful of wine. He didn't want to waste any more time. Yes, young master. A 10th layer martial immortal realm expert walked out from the dueling ground. His universal world realm has his worlds. S's. Comtails is tails translated tails. S's. Young master, this Sakura must not be killed. He must be left for Fairy Lu. The guards beside Bailey Yenwu said respectfully. Of course. The Lu family is from the heavenly court. We can't offend them. Today, we'll do them a favor. Bailey Yenwu nodded. Their Bailey family was still very afraid of the heavenly court. Go see what's happening outside the arena. The three of them haven't returned for so long. I'm afraid something might have happened. Then Bailey Yenwu said, What can happen? There's a level martial immortal stage expert at the entrance of the arena. Who in the vicinity can be their match? The guard replied with a smile. But he still obeyed Bailey Yenwu. At that moment, the level martial immortal stage expert Lord Lu's right hand turned into a tiger's claw. Black light flickered, and as if he was going to tear through the world, he ferociously attacked Sakura. You're also a rare talent. What a pity, what a pity. Today I, Lord Lu, will cripple you. Lord Lu sneered. However, when his palm was about to grab Sakura, his body suddenly froze. This unforeseen event made Tion stunned, and the people around him were also stunned. Lord Lu, why don't you cripple him? Bailey Yenwu also noticed that something was wrong with Lord Lu. He instantly frowned, and had an ominous premonition in his heart. Lord Lu, don't tell me you won't listen to the orders of my Bailey clan? Bailey Yenwu said again. Then, he stood up and planned to go over and take a look. Plop. Almost at the same time, Lord Lu's head slowly slid down and smashed onto the ground. It was a shocking scene. The arena instantly fell into a deathly silence. What happened? The expressions of the various experts changed greatly. Grandpa Lu, that was an expert at the 10th level of the martial immortal realm. He was killed. Moreover, throughout the entire process, they didn't see who did it. Instantly, an unknown fear arose in their hearts, causing their expressions to turn grave. Pa. At the same time, footsteps could be heard in the distance of the arena. A wide cloak slowly appeared. Holding a huge sword, the tip of the sword drew on the ground, causing dazzling sparks. He walked over step by step. Bailey Yenwu, we meet again. His indifferent voice was like a gust of wind that spread throughout the entire arena. It's you. Looking at the figure, Bailey Yinwu's pupils finally trembled. Sakura was stunned for a moment. Then he was overjoyed. Second brother, you didn't die? He was incomparably excited and tears flowed out. In the past year, he had been searching for the whereabouts of Lin Ling and Meng Lu. However, there was no news. This caused him to think that Lin Ling and Meng Lu were dead. But now, Lin Ling appeared in front of him again. Big brother, we brothers are gathered again. Seeing that Sakura was fine, Lin Ling couldn't help but smile. However, he did not know that the existence of the desolate body was nothing to Lin Ling, unless his desolate body exceeded Lin Ling's by a lot. But from the looks of it, Bailey Yinwu's desolate body was weaker than Lin Ling's. Watch me cripple you. Lin Ling stroked the vines on his left arm. Xiao Kunlun immediately grew and turned into a black plant. It sealed the entire arena, turning it into an ancient forest. Pa! Pa! Vines lashed out at Bailey Yinwu, causing his expression to change drastically. What sort of means was Lin Ling using? Controlling plants. Furthermore, this plant was too terrifying. It was as though it could drown the entire Dragon Tooth City. However, what truly terrified him was what happened next. Every time the vines lashed out at him, his body would tremble. The talent he was so proud of felt like it was about to leave his body. No! Bailey Yinwu cried out in pain. This was because his talent was obtained by his father in exchange for the Spirit State's illustrious sect. It was also his capital to head to the Spirit State's illustrious sect. However, this capital, this pride, was gradually disappearing. Pa! As the last sound of vines rang out, a divine crane with a dazzling body floated in front of Bailey Yinwu. Bailey Yinwu's pupils constricted. His talent had been extracted. His heart rumbled. Lin Ling was truly omnipotent. Now you can still laugh? I've said it before. We're people you can't afford to offend. Lin Ling looked at Bailey Yinwu mockingly, then said to Sakura, Big brother, collect his talent then cripple him. Roger that. Sakura was already itching to make a move. During this period of time, he had been hunted down so miserably. Now he was going to return the favor tenfold. Bailey Yinwu, have you ever thought that this day would come? Sakura arrived in front of Bailey Yinwu, and first, he ruthlessly lashed out with his palm. Pa! 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 Bailey Yinwu's head was like a rattle drum, swaying left and right. He kept vomiting blood, and finally, he was completely knocked out. Before he fainted, his only thought was that he had indeed provoked someone he couldn't afford to provoke. These two brothers were like two ferocious dragons. Even the local tyrant couldn't stop their rise. Stop. But right when Sakura was about to annihilate Bailey Yinwu, a furious roar suddenly resounded out in the sky, and then a man that was tall and sturdy like Vajra appeared. This man was around 40 years old, had a square face, and his face was covered in a dense beard, and he gave others an imposing feeling. Shockingly, he was Bailey Ishiong, the overlord of Dragon Tooth City, and Bailey Yinwu's father. Moreover, his cultivation was at the half-saint realm. Let him go, and I'll let you leave Dragon Tooth City. After Bailey Ishiong appeared, his eyes were slightly surprised. He hadn't expected that two of the three juniors he had hunted down a year ago were still alive, and had even caused a huge commotion in his territory. Chapter 30:10. I'll return you a corpse. His actions seemed to be unintentional, but in Bailey Ishiong's eyes, it made his heart grow heavier. He hadn't expected that this delicate and pretty fellow in front of him was not only arrogant, but also very meticulous. In the world of the 9 prefectures, people like this young man were the most difficult to deal with. He was rough but meticulous, and had extraordinary courage. If he didn't die, he would definitely be born. I've already given you the imperial crystals. Can you give him to me now? Bailey Ishiong said again. You, don't think about going back on your words because the entire city has been sealed off. If you don't hand over the person, you won't be able to leave this place. This was also the reason why he had paid the money. He felt that Lin Ling and Luli would not be able to leave Dragon Tooth City. After an hour, head east, and you'll be able to see your precious son. Of course, you can also follow us secretly, but I can't guarantee what I'll do. Lin Ling raised his head and said to Bailey Yixiong, "What a cunning brat. All right, I promise you." Bailey Yixiong attached even more importance to Lin Ling. The way this youth handled matters was simply watertight. "Big brother, take Bailey Yanwu away from here." Lin Ling smiled and said calmly. The two of them then left the arena. Outside the arena, a large number of experts had already gathered. Every one of them was as shocked as celestial beings. They never thought that there would be two ferocious people who dared to cause a huge commotion in Dragon-Tooth City. Is it the two of them? He's so young. TSK. He dares to fight an old monster of the half-saint realm at such a young age. His accomplishments will be extraordinary in the future. That's right. People like us don't even dare to speak when we encounter a half-saint. What's the point? They can't leave Dragon-Tooth City. The passers-by discussed animatedly. Some admired him, while others sneered. Die. Of course, there were also people who wanted to seize the opportunity to snatch young Master Bailey away. However, they were all killed by Lin Ling with a single slash. Let them go. We'll look for them in an hour. Moreover, Bailey Yixiong didn't want to stop Lin Ling and Bai Yunfei. Right now his goal was to get his son back. However, the killing intent in Bailey Yixiong's eyes intensified as he watched Lin Ling and Huang Xiaolong disappear into the distance. That blue-robed young man is a peerless genius. We can't let him leave Dragon-Tooth City alive, or else it will be a disaster for us. My lord, the Dragon-Tooth City is sealed by Lord Lu's barrier. As long as they let young master go, they won't be able to escape. Someone immediately replied respectfully. Good, well done. Although they're definitely going to die, their courage is really extraordinary. It's said that a strong dragon can't defeat a local snake, but they've still stirred up a storm in Dragon-Tooth City. Hearing that, Bailey Yixiong nodded and sneered. At this moment, it was getting closer and closer to the 1-hour limit. Lin Ling and Bai Yunfei quickly passed through the city. However, the Dragon-Tooth City was vast and boundless. With their speed, they still hadn't reached the city walls in an hour. Second brother, the city has been sealed. We can't leave at all. Di Shirtian looked at the sky in the distance and said with some worry, Big brother, I can just break the barrier of this city, so there's no need to worry about escaping. On the contrary, the Bailey clan and Lu clan have provoked us, so I plan to uproot them. Lin Ling smiled and calmly looked at Di Shirtian, which made the latter gasp. His second brother had such a big appetite. Most importantly, the Lu clan is my mortal enemy. I'll definitely destroy them. Lin Ling said again, but when he said the last sentence, his voice was ice-cold, as if he had a blood feud with someone. Is it Li Xiaoyao? Di Shirtian immediately guessed something. Lin Ling nodded. Okay, big brother will accompany you. But what about this thing? Di Shirtian and Lin Ling were friends from the Rainforest Holy Land, so he naturally wouldn't hesitate. However, he helplessly looked at the unconscious Bailey Yanwu. Kill him. What? Kill him? Didn't we use him as a hostage? This guy can't be a hostage. What's more, we don't have any grudges with the Bailey clan. It's all because of this guy. He actually dared to do such a thing. What's the point of keeping him alive? Hee. In fact, I've been waiting for you to say this. After the two looked at each other, Di Shirtian directly killed Bailey Yanwu and threw him on the street, leaving a line of words. We have handed him over to you. Previously, Lin Ling said that he would hand over the person, but he didn't say whether he would hand over a dead person or a living person. Since he didn't say this, then Lin Ling must have handed over a dead person. After throwing Bailey Yanwu on the street, the two quickly disappeared. Bailey Yanwu's body was lying on the street. At first, it wasn't discovered, but gradually, more and more people gathered around. Everyone was panicking. It's over, young Master Bailey is dead. Yeah, look at how ugly his death is. Lord Bailey will definitely be furious. He's most afraid of implicating us. This young Master Bailey also provoked the wrong person. He thought that he could do whatever he wanted because he was Bailey Yanwu. However, he didn't know that when others went all out, they would still dare to kill him. All kinds of voices were constantly heard in the streets and alleys. Not long after Bailey Yixiong arrived, Looking at his dead son, he was stunned. Find them, we must find them, even if we have to scour the ground. After a moment, Bailey Ishiong's roar spread throughout the city. Chapter 30:11. Attack the Lu family. Fortunately, the ancient forest was also their territory. Although it was not as convenient as the Dragon-Tooth City, capturing Lin Ling and the other person alive was only a matter of time. Therefore, it didn't take long for the experts of the two great forces to swarm out and enter the ancient forest. They must capture Lin Ling and Yi Shiwen alive in the ancient forest. However, at this moment, no one saw that in a restaurant in Dragon-Tooth City, two people wearing large cloaks were calmly drinking wine. Shockingly, they were Lin Ling and Yi Shiwen. They didn't leave the city at all. Fairy Lu, she was the one who brought this vengeance. Furthermore, she is also a member of the Heavenly Court. Therefore, she must die. Lin Ling took a sip of wine, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Everyone thought that they had left the city, so they were looking for them outside the city. At this time, the Lu family didn't have many masters, so it was a good time to rob them. As long as he obtained more cultivation resources, then Lin Ling wouldn't have to fear the half-sage realm. Ehe, the experience of leaving Qingzhou is indeed exciting. Di Shirtian also drank a mouthful of wine, but there was a hint of arrogance in his eyes. A mighty dragon is no match for a local snake. They were ferocious dragons now. Lin Ling calmly drank his wine in the restaurant. For the time being, he didn't act rashly. After all, this wasn't Qingzhou, and the experts he faced were like gods. It was always right to be cautious. Finally, through the conversations of the people around him, Lin Ling confirmed that the head of the Lu family, Lu Xingyan, had left. As a result, the two figures slowly left the restaurant amidst the enthusiastic chatter of the crowd. Hehe, even the half-saints of the Lu clan are on the move this time. Those two cockroaches won't be able to escape. Isn't that so? But I have to say, those two cockroaches are really bold. They even dared to provoke a saint. I'm impressed by their courage alone. It's admirable, but it's a pity that they still have to die. I estimate that the two cockroaches will be caught by dawn. The martial artists who did not know what was going on were talking amongst themselves. They had no idea that the two cockroaches they had been looking for had been drinking with them. If they knew about this, they would probably be even more shocked. Because they clearly had a way out, but they chose to stay in the tiger's den. This kind of action was simply beyond the imagination of humans. As for the Lu family, they were a huge force in Dragon-Tooth City, and also a branch of the Heavenly Court. The reason they were here was to recruit experts into the Heavenly Court. Therefore, with just the 4 words Heavenly Court branch, not to mention the nearby area, even in the 9 regions, there were not many people who dared to confront the Heavenly Court. Unless it was one of the 9 prefectures' 10 evils. Night came quietly. 2 figures approached the Lu family in the bustling streets. Their footsteps were silent, as if 2 death gods had returned from the underworld and were going to collect debts. The Lu family was grand and magnificent. Its entire body was made of white jade and gold stones. The gentle jade light had a little bit of golden light, which was very dazzling under the night sky. At the entrance of the Lu family there was a tall statue. Everyone who passed by looked at the statue with worship in their eyes. Because that was the legendary deity, martial god Qilin. The title of martial god represented everything. He was also one of the recognized experts in the post-deity era. Martial god Qilin. At this moment, Lin Ling stopped and looked at the familiar yet strange statue. How many years had it been since he saw Tian Yinlin again? In the past, Tian Yinlin was just an ordinary person in a small valley. Later, he followed Li Xiaoyao and was guided by Li Xiaoyao. Today, he had become a famous figure in the 9 regions. Second brother. Seeing Lin Ling standing there in a daze, Sakura couldn't help but frown. This is your enemy. Lin Ling nodded. His gaze fell on the ancient sword in the hand of the statue. His eyes became colder. The true inheritance of the dark sword. That sword was Li Xiaoyao's sword. After Tian Yinlin framed Li Xiaoyao, he seized the sword and made it his own combat sword. So cold, Sakura stood beside Lin Ling. He felt a cold, murderous intent. This was the first time he saw Lin Ling emit such a strong murderous intent. Of course, this murderous intent disappeared quickly. Sakura let out a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Lin Ling would be impulsive and destroy the statue. This would alert the enemy. At that time, it would be even more difficult for them to find Fairy Lu. Let's go in. Under the night sky, Lin Ling smiled calmly. After saying that, he strode toward the entrance. Who are you two? There were experts on guard at the entrance. In fact, they had already seen Lin Ling and Sakura. However, they thought that Lin Ling was worshipping the statue of martial god Qilin, so they didn't stop him. What do you think? Lin Ling didn't stop walking. How dare you? The guards were stunned. They had asked for the identity of the two visitors, but the other party had asked them back. Wasn't this courting death? You guys can't afford to offend them. Sakura followed closely behind Lin Ling. He licked the corner of his mouth and revealed a bloodthirsty smile. Catch them. Phew. The guards finally shouted angrily. Whoosh. At this moment, a fist broke through the air as if the dragon god was roaring. The speed of this fist was incomparably fast. It didn't seem to have a lot of momentum, but it was mixed with unparalleled power.